that. He just popped free, and he's gone. One man can catch him. Only one, and that's Frankie West. Not to be. 96 yards. It's a touchdown. Braylon Allen's first of the year.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
Mekhi Bernard in the game, and here's a flea flicker, rising with a ton of time. Got a receiver wide open, and it's caught for a touchdown. Dalton Kincaid got behind the defense, and Utah is on the board first.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Texas brings pressure. Duggan backpedals, slobs to the end zone. Wide open. Johnston, touchdown.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Shovel pass. Here's Sanders. A burst of speed. Rocket Sanders steps on the gas. A foot race. Touchdown. 73-yard liftoff for Rocket Sanders.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Gabriel pumps, looking deep, airing it out into the end zone. Stokes is there, got it, touchdown Oklahoma.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, we're back, and hopefully you enjoyed an extended holiday weekend. Craig and Paul did the show along with everybody else Friday. We had Monday off as the day before a holiday, then yesterday. Hope you did whatever you wanted to do to enjoy some time away, whether it was spend time on the lake, a river, golf course, cooking, fireworks, or everything else in between. Craig Smoak to my right, Paul Catalina, and this is 365 Sports. Garrett Ross runs the mothership today. Graham Bronstein is here. Levi Caraway is here, and a lot of things to get to. At the end of Friday's show, I got on the chat for like the last 90 minutes, and I saw, and I don't know if it was mentioned because I think it came very late, Lorenzo Haynes sent a $20 super chat to close out the show Friday. And it was right about the time you guys were shutting down the show. So I wanted to thank him off the top for his $20 super chat. Now, let's get to some Big 12 news. As far as fun, like in football, the Big 12 media preseason all-conference team. I told you last week when I gave you my picks for the team 1 through 14, I did not do the preseason teams. To me, there's too many unknowns of some of the incoming players who I've not seen enough and probably just like chickened out. I just did not feel strong enough to know everything. And then getting the team released today probably validated what I probably didn't know. Preseason media poll, these are the superlatives. Offensive Player of the Year. We had a conversation, Paul, I think when you had just gotten back. Maybe you weren't back because you were gone for 31 days. But, Craig, did we not also say that most likely there would be the voting that Quinn Ewers would probably be the Offensive Player of the Year in the preseason poll?
Well, first of all, I want to say thanks to Lorenzo. I don't remember. It's been 4 days, and that's the longest I think we've been off this show for a while. So did we say something at the end of the show?
No, you did not. That's why I wrote it down so I would say it today to start the show.
We had like 3, like right there in the last hour. And
well, Lorenzo, we much appreciate that, and sorry we didn't get around to that. But it is great that you did that, and hopefully you get to see this part of it where we are thanking you. So awesome deal there. I think on the Quinn Ewers thing, I don't think that, from what I recall in the conversation, it was a foregone conclusion that we felt that he was going to be the guy, but I think that we felt pretty strongly that he could be the guy, but probably didn't lend enough credence to the way people would respect Jalen Daniels and or Will Howard. Beyond that, I don't know, really, maybe Dylan Gabriel got a vote or two, I don't know, and perhaps some others, but I think he was pretty clearly one of 2 or 3 quarterbacks, and I just named them all along with Ewers. So when you say Jalen Daniels, though, and you you put that out there. I think that makes all the sense in the world, and I don't think anybody really should have much of a problem with that. He was having a fantastic year until the injury against TCU. When he came back, he wasn't or the team, wasn't experiencing the same type of success. Had the great bowl game that was crazy with Arkansas that they fell just short. But, yeah, there's a lot of reasons for optimism, and he's the reason why, the main reason why in Lawrence right now outside of Lance Leipold. So, yeah, that makes all the sense.
It makes me feel like I mentioned this last week when I did my media poll, the one that I sent in for the top 14, 1 through 14. I even kept saying that I feel weird about having Kansas 10th, and then he makes you even feel like perhaps I was way off on that. But we'll see. Defensive Player of the Year, Paxton. Go take yourself whatever you want to do, because Paxton was angry that Jalen Ford did not win this last year. He is the Defensive Player of the Year preseason media poll, the linebacker from the University of Texas.
Yeah, he's a very good player, and I don't know, preseason Player of the Year is kind of a dubious distinction because it means nothing's happened yet. But good for Jalen Ford.
Well, this is because of what he did last year.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But you haven't done anything for this year yet. But yeah, Jalen Ford is a fantastic player. Texas has made strides on defense over the last couple of years. We'll see, if those strides can get them to remain at the top of the conference and to be in the CFP discussion. But at least Paxton is happy, and Jalen Ford's family. Yeah,
well, Felix Anudike-Uzomah was the preseason player last year, ended up winning the award. So we'll see if Jalen Ford can do that same thing. And, Jalen Daniels is based off last year as much as anything else. So that's the deal with these preseason polls. There's a lot of leftover from the year before, and there's a lot of just guessing. And, I don't think we really run around back towards these things all that often. Nope. It's just kind of good fodder for right now. But, yeah, he's got a great argument. I have no issue whatsoever with Jalen Ford or Jalen Daniels being the respective superlatives here. He had a tremendous season, did have an argument to be Defensive Player of the Year last year. And I know there was the hot debate, as you mentioned, with Paxton amongst many other fans who went back and forth on Ford or Anudike-Uzomah and perhaps some others. I do think that linebackers particularly strong in the Big 12, it seems like this year. There's some really good players at TCU, Oklahoma State, Kansas State. Their linebackers ought to be tremendous. So he's going to be that might be, I don't know, if 1 through 14, if that would be like the strongest defensive position, but I think it's going to be pretty good. Huh? You
may have to do that article.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I want to add that just yet, but yeah, I might at some point. So I think linebacker will be good, a good spot for the conference, and he'll be right there at the top.
All right, so now the newcomer of the year, and you had to kind of think through this one. Toussaint Ward, former running back at Florida State, spent, I think, his first 4 years in college, played quite a bit the last couple of years. You look for a replacement for Deuce Vaughn. K-State, of course, always has something, and the defending champions, the Big 12 champions. Toussaint Ward, Paul, you know a little bit about him without going too deep, but he had like 1,200 yards the last couple of years playing for Florida State.
Yeah, if he's healthy, he's fantastic. He was just surpassed on the depth chart by guys like Trey Benson and Lawrence Toafili and a couple of their high-ranking incoming freshmen. He was going to lose some of those carries, plus they're probably going to throw the ball a lot more this year. In Chris Kleiman's offense with Will Howard, he is an absolutely great fit. He'll be a really good fit. Kansas State is going to have to replace Deuce Vaughn, and they're probably going to do it in the aggregate because it's going to be Toussaint Ward and maybe another player or two. Because
Giddens.
Giddens, and so
who's a banger?
Yeah, so but they're probably not going to have Toussaint Ward is not Deuce Vaughn. Giddens is not Deuce Vaughn, but if they can replace him, with a couple players and take that pressure off of Will Howard, then I think that's going to work out fine.
Yeah, like you said, nobody's Deuce Vaughn. I do love that the transfer portal has made Newcomer of the Year a lot more interesting than just guessing like the highest rated recruit that you think will play as a true freshman. Like there's now, and I had wondered about this. I couldn't quite remember when we last talked about this of whether the transfers counted as newcomers, but of course they do. They're new to the conference. So I think in that way, you probably could have had a good debate. Like A.D. Mitchell at Texas, but I understand there's a crowded wide receiver room, or, that's just one that pops to mind right away. But every team's got their, respective newcomers, and I would imagine there's a few names that could have, also been debated about here. But Ward makes a lot of sense because of just the massive void that Deuce Vaughn's leaving. And yes, it'll be him and Giddens, and I'm sure to some lesser extent some other guys. He's not going to fill those shoes. I mean, maybe statistically you can match, but just the moments that Deuce Vaughn just had, the plays that he had a knack for, the game-changing, ability that he had.
The elusiveness of just frustrating the hell out of the defense.
Right. He was just really special, and so I don't think any guy just replaces him wholeheartedly, but Treshaun Ward should have a monster year, because he's going to be relied upon heavily in that offense. Kansas State, you look around, and they're not that far off from the team they were last year on paper. Will Howard's back. He played all of the second half last year. Giddens is back. You lose Deuce. I get that. You lose a guy like a Malik Knowles, but you have guys like Phillip Brooks that can help that are counterbalancing that in the return game, for example. So you don't really miss anything there. Brooks at wide receiver as well, among others. I think they'll be fine there. You get your tight end back. You got your whole entire offensive line back, and they've got a couple spots like at corner and on the line where they're, having to go transfer portal or rely on, maybe some newcomers or guys to just grow up. But really outside of D-line, corner, and then whatever fall off you expect from Deuce Vaughn, that's really it.
Yep.
That's all Kansas State loses from last year's team, really. So, yeah, I'd expect them to have another, great season, and he'll be a big part of that.
I had them too, and probably every bit of argument because of what you just said. And no matter who they lost to perhaps, the Big 12 champions and defending champions. Big 12 Media Days, by the way, a week from today and tomorrow in Arlington AT&T Stadium. Looking forward to bringing you a massive amount of interviews from across the board throughout the conference, including with all 4 schools that have entered officially because of Midnight Friday, a part of the show too.
Yeah, and that's the thing that Ward will have is he'll have, again, that entire O-line, all the starters, including KT Leviston, who we covered here at Midway High School, including BB, the All-American there, and then, your quarterback's back basically. So, yeah, not a lot to pick up the slack for outside of Deuce Vaughn.
I think it's almost always a Kansas State player. I bet 7 of the last 10 years could be off completely in the special teams department. All right, we can't comment on everybody, but Garrett did a great job of peeling off. This is the first team, preseason team. That's an unbelievable graphic. Garrett, great job with that. From Daniels to Richard Reese, the freshman who was spectacular last year. There's Neal, who's spectacular. You have Worthy, who has some things to prove. Last year may have had the hand injury. Sanders, who was a beast at tight end. And then there's the offensive line, including Cooper Beebe. You mentioned him. The sophomore and Kelvin Banks. And then Zach Frazier, among the others. Leave that up, Garrett. Just a couple of nuggets there, guys, from the first team. And I did not do this team, but not one of those players is from an incoming team. Yeah, and I think that it's because BYU. I'm sorry, there's Brigham Young. Yeah, okay, good. The Brigham Young offensive lineman in Kingsley. So that's good. So a couple of nuggets from the first team preseason poll on offense.
There's 3 Kansas players on the Big 12 first team all offense, which I don't know when the last time or if ever that's ever happened.
In basketball.
But outside of that, I don't know that that's happened very often. I think, good for Kingsley Suamataya. And if I'm mispronouncing that, I promise I'll get that right sooner rather than later. I'm big on pronunciations, but good to see one of the new schools get at least a member there. And he's a future NFL guy, so I'm sure that's probably where a lot of people looked around and oh, he's a mock draft guy. He probably deserves to be on here, but good player. Good to see them represented. I think Richard Reese, his first-team running back, I don't know about that, honestly. I know he had a great year last year, but I don't know that he's going to be Baylor's main running back this year all the time. So to be the first-team running back in the conference, I don't know that I would go that far on my end of things. But
could it be because some other teams, Craig, have a running back by committee, and Baylor probably will too, but that we don't know the rotations yet?
Yeah, I think that's part of it. I think that, there's no Bijan to take up a spot that's just automatic. Like, I don't know that Devin Neal's the second best running back or one of the two best running backs in the conference. I think he's a known thing, though, and he plays with Jalen Daniels. I mean, not to say he's not a good player, but I just think there's a lot of unknowns maybe about the running back spot across the Big 12, because those are two guys that it's like, you looked at last year and what could carry over, kind of. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so, with Richard Reese, great year as a freshman. Don't know how much he'll split up the carries this time around, but if he made all Big 12, that would be great news for Baylor, obviously.
And Kendry Miller's gone.
Yeah,
TCU.
there's a lot of guys
also
gone.
Last year named
Eric Gray from Oklahoma's gone. Bijan's gone. Roshan's gone.
Deuce Vaughn's gone.
So, last year, like Deuce and Bijan, see ya. And, there's some really good guys who didn't make it because they had two studs that were pretty easy picks. So I do think there's that drop-off that you see there with Reese and Neal. Not to disrespect them in any way, but I don't know that I would bank good money that it'll be those two at the end of the year.
Yeah, I the only person on the first team offense that I would question at all is Worthy, not because of his ability. By God, not because of his ability. He's got talent at the wazoo, but I do question his motor a little bit on that, and I think that was part of the issue last year. But if he's got that motor running, then yes, he's absolutely a first-team wide receiver.
I don't know if it's his motor. There's so many players and weapons they have. You could have used a couple of names right there. Craig mentioned Mitchell, but I think it's too early for that. And with Nayor back and healthy, among others, I just think he had, so much happened 2 years ago. He got a little banged up in his hand, and maybe, I'm not using the word pouted, but he just kind of went into a shell, and it just did not work out. And Ewers was not flawless. And so maybe that created a little bit of what happened with him last year. Bradley's a heck of a receiver as far as a body to throw to for Texas Tech and also Shuck.
Yeah, Oklahoma State's really puzzling to me. I don't think anybody quite knows what to think of them, but Presley's a good pick. I think wide receiver, you could have gone with a number of guys. We just named Texas has like two other guys, but it's a little too early to go and peg them all Big 12 first team. But, Presley, Worthy, Bradley, that's a really good group. And I think that, Bradley is going to be a really problematic matchup for a lot of teams, just super athletic, got great size. Worthy, if he's on his game, and like you said, I think last year's was a combination of things. I think it was, things not going right, his hand, some big drops, just a lot of stuff that added up. So I would expect a big bounce back from him. There was all that talk about him possibly transferring just because things were sort of out of whack, and that didn't happen. So I would think that means that anything that, rumor or not, got smoothed over, and he's going to be locked in, ready to go, and should be great for them, and what should be an awesome wide receiver.
Banks and Beebe, no-brainers, would think on the preseason. Now let's go to the defense. Let's go to the defense. You see, there's the logos jump out at you, and there's not one that just dominates. There's not one player from Baylor on the first team preseason defense. There is Cincinnati from the new incoming four, and that's nice to see. So you have the Downs and Williams and Murphy, of course, who at one point was committed to Baylor, the defensive lineman from DeSoto. Hutchins is a Texas Tech. Then you look at the linebackers, Oliver, Hodges, who's fantastic with TCU, Ford. And then you have all the rest of the defensive backs, including Kobe Savage, who I think is fantastic, Kendall Daniels from Oklahoma State, and then Josh Newton. Couple of notes. We got a guest at 325 and Ivan Maisel.
I love that Cincinnati has a guy named Don Corleone as a father, as a fan of The Godfather. But, yeah, I mean, obviously Jalen Ford. I was glad to see TJ Tampa on here from Iowa State. He's a really, really good player. Kobe Bryant very famously had the big pick against Texas a couple years ago. And I think, maybe people he faded into the background a little bit with that Texas offense, but in spite of the defensive woes that Kansas had last year, he is certainly a bright spot on there. So he stood out to me as one of the picks as well.
Yeah, I think it's a really solid group, strong linebacker group. I just see some debate on, Colin Oliver and whether he should count as a true linebacker, more of a guy who's, kind of on the line a lot. But, either way, you want to slice it. That's a good group. Secondary is really strong. And, the defensive line, I think, will be really interesting. Murphy's quickly become an impact guy for Texas. You just see the talent. You see why Baylor wanted him. You see why Texas wanted him so bad. Hutchings is him and Bradley, those are two freaky guys for Texas Tech that, probably have some NFL futures ahead of them. And, not one team really dominating, like you said. A couple teams getting left out, but I do think Cincinnati with Corleone, if they were going to get a guy, that would have been the guy to bet on them getting on one of these two teams. So, yeah, good to see him on there.
Here's a quick note from Justin R. Last time KU had 3 players on an all Big 12 offensive team was 2007. That was the Todd Reesing year when they went to the Orange Bowl. He was the quarterback, Brandon McAnderson, running back, and Marcus Henry at wide receiver. So, Justin, thanks for that. We appreciate that and nugget from you. Paxton, Kobe Bryant is elite. And so there you are with the preseason media team. And honestly, looking at the names, there's like about 33% of them that I would have had, and the other ones would have been really hard for me to come to a consensus on what to do. Now, Big 12 Media Days, I mentioned a week from today. Brett Yormark, in an article, an interview with the Dallas Morning News, made this comment about the footprint of the Big 12 in the city or cities, the metroplex of Dallas and Fort Worth. Part of what has kept the Big 12 presence from growing in Dallas is the lack of initiative on the conference's part, blaming the conference. There's so many possibilities and opportunities, but candidly, we haven't done much outreach before. That's going to change. In their own backyard, with their offices right there headquartered in Dallas and Fort Worth, Brett Yormark probably one day walked in there and said, hey, what do we do around here? Other than just the fact we have the headquarters here, how can we be bigger in Dallas regardless of what teams are a part of the conference or not?
Well, just drive around Dallas and tell me how many billboards you see for Big 12 stuff compared to random, there could be an LSU billboard, which we know about.
Yeah.
There could be, I've seen Alabama and, all kind of things.
Hell, I've seen Mary Hardin Baylor.
Yeah.
You've seen Baylor. But the conference
Midwestern
itself,
State,
not much. Yeah,
all over the place. So that's just billboards. But I do think that he's right there. They kind of maybe take a little bit of it for granted.
Yeah, I think there's some taken for granted. I think maybe that's on his radar a bit because of SMU, possibly. Wanted to realize, if we're not careful here, that the Pac-12 could swoop in and really, go on the attack as far as the Dallas footprint. Look, they're not going to sway most of Dallas because most of Dallas is A&M, Texas, Oklahoma, TCU, any variety of teams.
Tech and Baylor a little bit.
Yeah, Tech and Baylor have plenty of folks. So, they're not going to swoop in and endanger that whole ecosystem, but they could swipe a few of the favorite, as far as being a Big 12 town or an SEC town, they could make a little dent with SMU, so I'm sure that's on his mind, and you don't want to fall farther back and be on the attack while you can.
All right, Ivan Maisel, one of the most decorated columnists covering college sports and athletics that I've known. He joined us last year about this time at Big 12 Media Days. Remember, they were launching on3.com. He was also the reporter who saw Jimmy Johnson and Jerry Jones having dinner at Mia's, I think it was called, in Dallas, and had a photographer from the Dallas Morning Photographer come by and get a couple of pictures of them. He's done that. He's written books. Remember, his son died of a suicide and how he has battled that and tried to at least get awareness for that and wrote a book about his son. That and more. He's also announced his retirement. Well, ask him exactly what that means, if it means retirement. This is 365 Sports.
It's the 4th of July sales event at Allen Samuels with major deals on these Hot Wheels. Get the legendary 2023 Dodge Challenger or Dodge Charger SXT, GT, or RT with total values up to $2,000, plus an extra $500 to first responders.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive, North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year. Whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry, and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon-wrapped fillets to T-bone to bone-in ribeyes. Cut specifically the way you want. They have Norwegian salmon fillets, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey and lunch meat, variety of cheese available, and several options of sausage links. Fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, ground beef, marinated beef, and chicken fajitas, and always large briskets available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and family tradition of the Bauer family continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday. A full-service butcher shop and bakery available. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Baylor Scott and White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott and White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
He's an author, highly decorated columnist, has been in the media business for many, many years. He was just back from vacation, or is just back from vacation. He started on 3.com. And Ivan Maisel joins us on 365 Sports with Paul Craig, and I'm David Smoak. How was your vacation, Ivan?
Well, David, it was great. We actually went to Stockholm and Oslo, so 2 places I've never been before and probably won't be again.
And you also, I think, did you not announce your retirement before you left?
Well, I'm not calling it a retirement. I just decided I wasn't going to cover college football the way I have since 1987 anymore. I'm still going to write, but I want to do other things.
So, Ivan, I saw a picture that a few people, when you mentioned you were going to do some other things, talking about memories of working with you and what it meant. And one of them was the picture of Jerry and Jimmy at Mia's in Dallas when all that was happening, and that you happened to be there eating dinner and called a photographer for the Dallas Morning News to come help maybe break one of the biggest stories ever.
Yeah, well, David, I had spent all afternoon with every other member, living, breathing member of the Morning News staff, searching Dallas for Jimmy and Jerry. And I think I sat in a hotel lobby for about 3 hours. And I called my editor and said, hey, my girlfriend is coming home after being gone for 6 weeks. I want to take her to dinner. And they said, fine, go. And she got home, and we lived 2 blocks from Mia's. over on Lemon. And I said, "What do you want to eat?" She said, "I'm dying for Tex-Mex." So we're standing there waiting for a table, and the door opened, and there came Jimmy, Jerry, and their wives. And, I turned the whitest shade of white you've ever seen. But I just walked. They went over to get beers while they were waiting for a table, and I walked over and tapped Jimmy on the shoulder, and he turned around and said, "Oh, Beep, what are you doing here?" And I said, "Well, Jimmy, I live 2 blocks from here. What are you doing here?"
Yep.
So he laughed and introduced me to Jerry, and I kind of very quietly walked down the street. This was 1989 or 88, whatever it was, and 89, and walked down the street to the Shell station and used the payphone and called the office. They sent over a photographer.
Garrett, I just sent you that photo if you want to throw it up in a second. What was it like to, just as a reporter in response of, I've just stumbled onto this, could you even have a focused, nice dinner that night, or were you just thinking about work?
Well, I was a little tense waiting for the photographer to show up. And then he showed up, and he was in there about 5 minutes, and I couldn't see their table. But he left, and I walked over after we finished eating and said goodbye. And Jimmy said, "Well, you got your picture." I said, "Well, yes, we did, and thank you, and see you around." And what I remember is that the next morning, Frank Luxa, who was just such a great columnist and was then at the Times-Herald, wrote a column that ran on 1A above the fold and said, "We don't even know if these people exist," which was just Frank's sense of humor. And it was a great column, except that right above the fold on 1A, we had that entire, was that picture of them grinning and signaling that an era was ending and a new one was starting.
Mm-hmm. There it is. There's the picture of Jimmy and Jerry. Jimmy looks pretty much still the same, just a little bit different with age. And Jerry, of course, has changed dramatically, but you could still see the features at his face. Ivan, what was it about the atmosphere, the pageantry? What is it about college football that you love the most?
Well, that it means so much to people. David, I grew up in Mobile, Alabama, and it meant a lot to me growing up. And I understand to this day why it's so important. So being able to tell those stories and the history of the game and the import of it and meeting, all the great coaches that I've dealt with, what you learn is that they're all really good teachers. And because of that, they're good communicators. So it was easy to write about them. And it's just so exciting. God love the NFL, but you don't get that passion and energy that you get with 100,000 people when you go see an NFL game, because you didn't go to the NFL school. People feel very close to their colleges, and that's where they became grown-ups and where they met their lifelong friends, and that's why college football is so important to them. And all of that just fed into why I was able to do it for so long, because it means something.
What concerns you most about the future of college football, and what are people too worried about that probably won't change that much?
Well, I think last year eased my fears of the unknown, in the sense that, last year was really the first time that NIL and the portal had a full head of steam, and yet we had a great season, and it was really exciting. And we had a Cinderella in TCU come up and, get right to the very end. And so what that told me is that, the intrinsic appeal of college football still hasn't changed, even though the kids are now earning money and they can go wherever they want. I'm not the one who came up with this line, but it's always meant something to me. At the end of the day, we all root for laundry. We're rooting for those colors, and then again, because it's your school and that's what means something. So last season sort of reinforced for me that it'll be okay.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that because of you hear about the super conferences, whether it's the SEC and Big Ten just gobbling up whoever they want, and then they play their own national championship. Do you feel like because we root for the laundry that won't happen?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it may happen, and the Pac-12 has an uncertain future, and the Big 12 has got a shot of adrenaline. With Brett Yormark, and I mean, I'm concerned that it's going to be the Big Two and everybody else in terms of the conferences. But if you look at it, really, every 10 years over the course of my career, we've had a spasm of realignment, and that's what we're going through now over the last 12 months. Another spasm of it. I think SC and UCLA is a really dumb decision by them, and I understand why they did it. They did it for the money, but I think every other school that's made that sort of play has not been as competitive as they were when they were in the league they should be in. If you look at Nebraska, you look at West Virginia, you look at Boston College. All those schools made money plays, and we've never heard from them again. And I fear that's what's going to happen with the LA schools when they just have to travel over and over and over again.
Ivan, I would argue that Texas A&M is the only one who moved and remained exactly who they were with just a nicer house.
Yeah, that's true. They have one great. In my career, anyway, they had one great run with R.C. Slocum, and after that, they've been good but not great. And it's kind of where they are now.
Ivan, you pointed out that you've seen different waves of realignment. You covered the game and other sports long enough to see things happen, and just they happen more than once. We treat it like it's new right now, but it's happened plenty of times before. And the same applies to a lot of other areas, and that includes the media changing up. And there's been a lot of shakeups here in the industry as of late, as I'm sure you're well aware. And as you've been through previously, you were part of the start of On3. That's thriving right now, it appears. But what's just kind of your general take on what you see when you look around the sports media landscape these days, and you see just how crazy and kind of unpredictable it is at the moment?
Well, it's unnerving. I don't know what to do. I get calls from young people. I get calls from veterans. Say, what do I do? What do you think? And I don't know what to tell them. I mean, the business I entered is all but dead. And where do you go to write? You got to find a website, or you do your own deal with Substack or Medium, and everything seems to be shrinking. I mean, On3 has found a great niche. I was very lucky to get involved with them early. They're smart people, and it's doing well, and I think it's going to continue to do well. But what's happening with sports media isn't all that different with what's happening with media in general. Mm-hmm. There's a couple of big fish, and then there's everybody else that's not swimming very well.
Ivan, what other projects do you have in mind for your not retirement?
Yeah, well, I said I want to write what I want to write, and my wife said, "Oh, okay, so you're going to continue to write. You're just not going to get a paycheck." I said, "Yeah. I've got a couple of book ideas that I'm going to pursue, and if I see something that I want to write, I'll try to figure out where to sell it." And On3, it said, whenever you want to write something for us, please do. And so I don't know. I'm not going to make any fast decisions. In fact, I've spent all day I'm researching a book, and I've spent all day sort of, with my head in the internet and making notes, and that's what's occupying me right now. But I'm also just going to kind of hang and see what happens.
How long does it take to research perhaps a book you're going to write compared to how long it takes to write it?
Well, that's a great question. I think the idea I have, it's going to take me, several months to do the research. And, I'm not sure whether I'll begin writing while I'm researching or I'll try to get it all done. I mean, in order to write a book proposal, you have to write a sample chapter. So I'm going to have to do some writing at some point, but I'm having a lot of fun, and I'm a history geek, and I'm enjoying the research, and we'll see what happens.
Ivan Maisel, author, columnist, long time, many times awarded for the best stories written and columns as well. And then, of course, and we've asked you about this and discussed this as well, about your son who passed away, and you wrote the book about him. Do you feel like the impact, because of your personal experience and what you wrote about your son, Max, has helped with the awareness of suicide?
Yeah, David, I think it's helped. I hope it's helped. I mean, in my town here in Connecticut, the local library has a One Book, One Town event each year. And this year they picked my book, and the whole town, quote unquote, the whole town read it. And I went to Fairfield University, and the theater was filled, and with a lot of people I know and a lot of people I don't. And I talked about the book, and I went up to my branch library today, and there was a sign there with about 25 copies of my book saying "For sale, $3." I guess we're all moving on. But it was very gratifying, and I continue to get emails and calls from people that want to talk to me and want to let me know what the book meant to them and how it's helped them, and that's why I wrote it. Hopefully the word of the book will continue to spread.
By the way, in our chat room, which is off to the side, which can be its own little world, but a lot of that are listening and watching what we do, and we appreciate the opinions. So many people love your work. Not that you need to know that, but literally, like every third or fourth text when you first came on, we mentioned you were coming on. Love your work, love your writing, and compared you to many of the great writers in our lifetime.
Well, that's really kind. I appreciate knowing that. I had so much fun working in that part of the world, and it means a lot to me, and that I really appreciate you telling me.
Last thing, you're a graduate of Stanford, and you mentioned USC, UCLA. We know what that's meant. It was 1 year ago today the Pac-12 announced, like 5 days after the USC, UCLA story popped, that it was 1 year ago today when the Pac-12 announced that they would start to work on their television media deal. You know where that is now. How much consternation or annoyance or frustration or no, everything's going to be fine, do you feel is going on right now with George Kliavkoff in the Pac-12?
Oh, yeah, it's frustrating. It's frustrating as a college football fan. It's frustrating, with an alma mater that's hemming and, waiting to see what happens. I feel a little bit better about Stanford's long-term prospects because of the reputation the university has in academia and because of the broad-based success it's had in so many sports. They'll find a home. But it's just sad that all those rivalries are endangered. And certainly the Stanford rivalry with the LA schools, that's outside of Cal, who is their main rival. Those are the games that mean the most, and they just walked away from them. And that's the lifeblood of the sport. And over the course of my career, there have been plenty of rivalries that have been tossed aside, and I think the sport is poorer for it. I mean, who is Penn State's rival right now?
Mm-hmm.
They don't have one. Who is Nebraska's rival right now?
Mm-hmm.
They don't really have one, and the rivalries make the sport. So it's too bad.
Ivan, we appreciate it. I remember we had you on when On3 first began, when you were a part of the launch, and appreciate you. Whatever you do, I know it's going to be done well. And as somebody mentioned, very elite in what you do as a writer. We appreciate you jumping on with us, and we hope you had the great vacation and also enjoy whatever you do next.
Thanks, David, and I hope we talk again.
Yes, sir, we will. Ivan Maisel. Imagine, so you live 2 blocks from me, is a great, historic, and phenomenal restaurant in Dallas. And there's rumblings about the Cowboys and who was it? Bum Bright and Tex Schramm, of course, the general manager and president, Tom Landry, the head coach, and there's these rumblings going on. And he happens to be at a restaurant and sees Jimmy Johnson sitting at a table with then introduced as Jerry Jones, calls a photographer who's just minded his own business. Last name is Kegans. I think it's either Kegans or Keegans. Said, hey, I need you to come over here at Mia's and take a picture for me. And he goes up to where they were having dinner and he takes 6 pictures. And after the 6th one, Jimmy, okay, I think you have enough. And then from there, the rest, of course, one of the most amazing stories in sports, the Cowboys being sold, Landry being fired, Jimmy and Jerry taking over the Cowboys, and nobody wanted to be a fan of theirs anymore. I'm never going to watch them again. I'm never going to go to another game until all of a sudden, 92, they're really good, and a dynasty for the next 4 years, and everybody started watching them and going to their games again.
I still know people, though, that will tell me that I have not rooted for the Cowboys since they fired Landry the way they did, which I don't totally believe.
Well, and they haven't really been missed, to be perfectly honest with you. I don't think anybody noticed. I mean, all due respect, but their ratings have been just fine. They've, if anything, grown over that time. So you were, somebody who chose to make that stand, but you were certainly not in the majority by doing that. And I've watched Cowboys games with people who also said that they were going to quit watching after, I said, and it's like, but we're watching it right now. So what, well, they won 92, 93, 95 Super Bowls. That certainly swayed a lot of people into feeling like maybe this Jerry Jones guy wasn't so bad after all, or maybe they should make a little exception for him. But that's an iconic picture. I'm glad you brought the part up of how many pictures they took, because I was actually just wondering that at the very end of like, wait a second. So they just walked up and just started taking pictures, and Jerry and Jimmy didn't really react. I was curious about that for a moment, so glad you kind of touched on that.
Because Jimmy could have reacted the way Jimmy can be pretty edgy. Not that Jerry can't be, but Jerry's pretty much fun-loving. But yeah. No.
Well, yeah, but it's also a secret meeting that they're not trying to be seen. So I imagine I'm surprised, I guess Roosevelt wasn't around then. For those that don't know, that's been Jerry's guy, for his right-hand security guy for like 20 plus years. Yeah. So I don't know if he was even a known guy for Jerry at that point. But regardless, whoever he had around him, it's a different time for sure that they just let cameramen just walk up and take pictures, or I guess they really had no choice in the matter and just had to grin and smile, and the rest is history. But Maisel's a great writer. I know his stint with On3 wasn't nearly as long as maybe some people had anticipated, and that's why I was wanted to ask him just in general, because he's not a part of the cuts or anything that's all been going on, but he has been around to various places, including his last stop at On3, getting a little taste of that side of the media. So I was curious, for a guy who's been around and kind of been everywhere or seen everything, what his thoughts are. And he's right, it's not just sports, it's in general, but it is still kind of fascinating to watch it unfold and get somebody who's seen it all, done it all, their thoughts on it.
Well, one of the guys let go by ESPN this week was Gene Wojciechowski.
Yep.
And I always kind of put those two together for a long time, as when you were going to go read an ESPN story,
right.
The two best ones were Ivan and Gene. I mean, they were just so good.
Here's what Ivan said about Gene Wojciechowski, who, again, last day was on the 30th. Very few journalists proved excellent in print as reporter, feature writer, columnist, then remade themselves on TV as feature reporter and analyst or essayist. Now there is one fewer at ESPN. Gino on game day made you laugh one week, reach for the Kleenex the next. Bravo to my old friend, Gene Wojciechowski. Speaking of which, there's a note about Dr. Linda Livingstone, Baylor president. They have announced who will be the upcoming Big 12 Board of Directors chairperson. Obviously, Lauren Shavanik, who's been a part of this show from Texas Tech, had a 2-year term that's expired. And Dr. Linda Livingstone, who continues to rise up the ranks of administrators among college athletics and sports, is now the new chairperson for the Big 12 Board of Directors. Congratulations to her and also to the Big 12. Big 12 Media Days 1 week from today and tomorrow at AT&T Stadium in Arlington. This is 365 Sports. IdealMRI.com in the Central Texas Marketplace. IdealMRI.com can do two things for you and do it very well. The average MRI is $1,100, which means if that's the average, you know that there will be some that might be $1,500, $2,000, or whatever. In fact, one time when I went to get an MRI at a hospital system, it was too late for me to back away, and my cost was $1,600. I'll never forget the time when Dr. Rob Maxey reached out to me when I was at the radio station, and they said, "We want you to endorse us." And I was like, "Okay, what about you?" They have a beautiful facility, a state-of-the-art technology MRI machine. And the big pitch not only is finding evidence of a muscle or something that's torn or a ligament that's ripped, is the fact that it's $497 or less every single time. Not buy one, get two free, $497 every single time. And you also get the evidence you and your doctor need of what is hurting you to where you almost can't sleep, you can't function, you don't feel right. IdealMRI.com in the Central Texas Marketplace off 35 in Waco.
Cars priced right, day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
Joined by Samantha Duvall, TexasBeefHouse.com, Director of Marketing. 4th of July, it's coming up. We've been through Father's Day, Memorial Day before that, and now you have 4th of July. What are a couple of specials, or maybe when people call, they could focus on the 4th of July weekend?
So we just got a new shipment of inventory in, so we are stocked back up on our brisket. We're stocked back up on our ribeyes. Of course, we've got hamburger patties, jalapeno and cheese patties. Those are one of our biggest sellers. Also put together what we call the grilling package, and it's a package that gives you sirloin, filet, hamburger package, regular patties, jalapeno and cheese patties, New York strip, and some of our Wagyu garlic links. They're fully cooked. You just throw them on the grill or put them in the oven.
Where is the best beef in Texas? Your house. When you order from Texas Beef House, unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu from our pasture to your plate. TexasBeefHouse.com.
In the market for a quality metal building? Since 1943, Pioneer Steel and Pipe has helped Central Texas residential and commercial customers with metal building design, panel options, building components, and trim options. Pioneer Steel and Pipe's residential line is energy efficient, offers low maintenance, reduces insurance payments, is impact resistant, and carries up to a 45-year limited warranty. In addition, they can also help you find a metal building contractor for your project. Pioneer Steel and Pipe with locations in Waco and Bryan and at pioneersboys.com.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive is premier, elite, life-changing experience where you can change your mind, body, and soul. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers over 40 group exercise classes each week, including boot camp, indoor cycling, and more. If you haven't been there in quite some time, you're missing out on the improvements for our members. New flooring in the weight room and locker rooms, new paint and mirrors added in the weight room and group exercise room, with more new machines arriving over the next few months. New free weights, weight machines, TRX TRX, rowing machines, stationary bikes, new treadmills, new elliptical machines on spacious weight room floor. Personal training with Christy London, Randall Corley, and Alex Bach, where you will be encouraged and motivated to grow. There's sauna, whirlpool, tanning bed, and kids club. The amenities are great. 16 tennis courts plus an 1,100-seat stadium court, 8 pickleball courts, youth and adult tennis and pickleball lessons. Visit our website, wacotennis.com, or visit Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
This is 365 Sports. Want more updates during the day? Follow 365 Sports YT on Twitter.
Mentioned that story with Dr. Linda Livingstone, president at Baylor, now the Big 12's, the chairperson of the Big 12 Board of Directors, and Lawrence Shavanik was there for a couple of years. Also on the board executive committee is University of Kansas Chancellor Doug Girard and Iowa State University President Wendy Winterstein. She is the secretary and treasurer. The vice chair is KU's chancellor. And their appointments are through 24-25, so the upcoming school year, and 24 and 25. So Dr. Livingstone is now on the NCAA Board of Governors. She is also on the Transformational Committee, and she is now the chairperson of the Big 12 moving forward, and has joined some of the highest ranking positions you could have in college athletics. So earlier today, this is always a pretty good discussion. And Chris, we appreciate the super chat, $5. The question from Chris was this: on Oregon and Washington, and his super chat, guys, what would be your reaction to the Big 12 inviting Oregon and Washington to effectively kill off the Pac-12 should the Big 12 end the Pac-12? One, you have to have two people interested for both to be interested. And in my opinion, if you put 1, 2, and 3 together for Oregon and Washington, A would be Big 10, B would be keep the Pac-12 intact within reason, and 3 would then panic. Now, we had this discussion back when USC and UCLA left because it made sense. I don't think Oregon and Washington have any interest, but until you eventually have no other options, if that ever happens, and I don't think it will, that would be how I would look at this question. Chris, again, thanks for the super chat.
Yeah, I don't see Washington and Oregon being interested in the Big 12 at all unless they had to be. Like they don't have to be right now. Nothing. There's no gun to their head, and right now, look, I mean, you can kind of own the conference that you're in if you could finally find a media deal to make it, but that remains to be seen. I don't know, if Washington, Oregon have come up in the Big 12 discussions as far as realistic, other than this is a scenario that could happen.
There's no way that the Big 12 ever had meetings without at least bringing them up as something. What can we do with them, or is there anything we can do? But they're not.
I doubt they've spent as much time on them as they have on others.
Yeah,
so Brett Yormark said it's not just about numbers. With the Big 12, it's about fit, culture fit, and all that. And Washington, Oregon, to be the first to tell you that's not a fit for them unless it had to be, which is why the Colorado and Arizona discussions make a whole lot more sense. Colorado's a fit. And we said this on the show when Brett Yormark said that, in that they were a Big 12 team to start out with. And Arizona just seems a little bit more like Big 12 schools than some of their Pac-12 compatriots. But, at the end of it, I just don't see the Big 12 actively trying to end a conference. They don't need to do that. They can just wait for the conference to end on its own.
Appreciate the super chat. I think that there's very little to no chance that Oregon and Washington are interested. It would have to be, like was kind of said a second ago, a move that's forced upon them. And even then, I think that they could be had for pennies on the dollar by other conferences like the Big Ten, who maybe don't want them right now the way that it's still rumored. But if they were all of a sudden like, please, we're abandoning ship, we are here, just throw us some type of a life raft, I think that maybe that would kick the fancy of the Big Ten. But, without someone like that becoming interested, I think that they're going to sit pat, enjoy an expanded playoff, enjoy the better travel. And, whatever money's going to come with that or network coverage, still remains to be seen. I'm glad that you asked the question, though, because it kind of brings up the latest realignment stuff that's kind of been percolating, even though we're in the exact same place that we have been. I don't see a scenario outside of just doomsday for the Pac that that's even a possibility. And even then, I think that they might ply their trades as independents before joining the Big 12, honestly. I mean, I really do. I just don't think that there's, unless Brett Yormarsh got some crazy, mysterious, just somehow just got it done in the dark of night without anybody knowing it, which I don't think happened, there's just not a connection there for me. So as far as really what you asked about, the Big 12 killing off the Pac-12, it's not in the Big 12's hands, and it's not going to be in their hands by inviting an Oregon and Washington. And I think that if there was actually, I'm sure they kicked the tires on that, but I think the lack of any mention of them in all of these conversations that have been had goes to show you that there's not really any reciprocated interest. Because if Oregon and Washington were interested, you don't think that he'd be throwing little flyers out about them the same way that we've heard about Arizona and Colorado and Utah. I mean, that would be the far bigger headline. So the fact that there's absolutely nothing on that front, and the fact there's really nothing on the front with them in the Pac-12, really, like they've just kind of sat back and surveyed it all. I think that they're just biding their time, hoping that, yes, one day that phone call from a big conference or bigger conference comes. And until then, hey, just get fat and happy on your regular rivals in your regular part of the country with a few big blockbuster games in the non-conference here and there, and take advantage of the expanded playoff. And, eventually maybe the money issue will become such an issue, but it's not right now because we don't know the TV deal.
We don't, and they would most likely, if anything does, you would think in the Pac-12 survive, and I think it somehow does, whatever it might be. Oregon and Washington will have that feeling of, okay, we also want this, maybe the unequal revenue sharing like the ACC at least threw out there. Secondly, is that what's easier to get into the college football playoff if you're Oregon and Washington once USC and UCLA leave, especially USC with what they have with Lincoln Riley and what Kelly's doing now at UCLA. If that conference remains intact with who they have at 10 or whatever number it's going to be, what's easier and how's a better way to get to the college football playoff? Not that they can't win the Pac-12 by themselves now, than if two of those other teams leave and they're going to get a team in the college football playoff.
Look, this is, not an apples to apples comparison, but Baylor didn't start winning conference titles until A&M and Nebraska left the league because those are two schools they couldn't beat, right? So
never beat Nebraska, and they very rarely ever beat A&M.
They beat A&M one time in 30 years.
And also, let's be fair, Baylor got better.
Yeah, they got better, but
a lot better.
It's easier. It's a lot. You can go faster when those bugaboo teams are gone.
The bumps aren't in the road.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're Washington and Oregon, and the Pac-12 is going to add, let's just say they do add SMU and San Diego State, they're not scared of, they're not going to be like, oh crap, San Diego State's going to take a chunk out of our recruiting or anything like that. They're not going to be scared of them at all, so they'll be able to just kind of to move on ahead. So yeah, I would think that maybe being the two biggest brands in a conference of 10 or 12 teams, at least in the short term of 5 years, and seeing how this playoff thing works out before whatever else happens, might be a good thing.
Since 1998, real quick, if you have something to add to that, please do. 6 times since 1998 has Southern Cal beaten Oregon. I would say 1, 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So 6 and 13 USC against Oregon. Oregon's won 13 of 19, it looks like to me, since 1998 against USC. So it's not like they weren't beating them anyway.
So why is USC and UCLA going to be in favor of them joining their conference that they just joined? I mean, this is like Texas and Oklahoma inviting Texas Tech and Oklahoma State to join them a year after joining the SEC, right? Or the year before joining the SEC, which already we're on that time right now. That's the part of it that I understand they don't have all say and all power in the Big Ten. They haven't even officially joined it yet, but I just don't see the desire outside of people who rightfully suggest hey, wouldn't it be better to have, easier travel? Well, yeah, it would. But beyond that, I don't know why, really the Big Ten's making the move unless you can show me that either one of those schools is bringing everybody else more money, which I have yet to see that. I haven't seen a single chart that shows that Oregon and Washington would bring more money for everybody, including the LA schools. So from a basic standpoint of wanting to be the West Coast reps for the time being, and the fact that there's nothing really additive, and the fact that I think there's so many moving parts that, okay, you want to throw the ACC in there, and I know that that's kind of all died down right now, but damn well the Big Ten's paying attention to that. And, I just think there's things that kind of have to happen to encourage other things to happen. And right now I haven't seen anything happen that makes me believe that there's anything really encouraging Oregon or Washington to want to kill off the pack, which, is their nest right now. And I don't see anything that suggests that they have an out to go anywhere else besides somewhere like the Big 12. But they don't appear to have any interest in that whatsoever. So they are where they are, and I think they can take advantage of it. But I do believe the question does eventually become, okay, obviously, what does that TV contract look like? And then does one of the bigger conferences, the SEC or the Big Ten, do they finally get enough of an appetite here in the next 3 to 5 years where that is a legitimate possibility for those two to then offload onto another group? Right now, it just doesn't appear to be in the cards.
All right, when we come back, of course, Friday was an intriguing day in college athletics with San Diego State and that story that they would stay, at least for now, in the Mountain West Conference. The Pac-12 deciding that they will have some information, but it might be another 3 or 4 weeks. And then the Big 12 saying, we're everything signed, sealed, and delivered, and now we'll start to work on our data. That particular contract, among other things. We'll come back with Kim Coulter, a super chat about San Diego State and the Mountain West Conference. There have been a couple of more reports since then. Mark Ziegler joined the show on Friday from the San Diego Union-Tribune. We'll answer Kim's question and more, and this is 365 Sports. I don't know what you put on the grill when it came to 4th of July yesterday or out throughout the extended holiday weekend. Maybe burgers, maybe hot dogs, maybe brats, maybe other particular sausage, and then, of course, even chicken wings. And that's what you can get at Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco. They have those big tomahawk chop ribeyes, if you want one of those that looks like the Vikings used to eat back in the day. They have a full-service grocery store, full-service bakery, kolaches and fresh baked bread every day, and a butcher shop with pork, poultry, and also beef and seafood. Waco Custom Marketplace, the Bauer family, coming off 4th of July, so there are still family reunions and much more to go throughout the summer. 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
The future's bright, the time is now. College is what you make it. It's a late-night pizza run and all-nighters coding a new project. It's having big dreams and making them a reality. It's a professor who knows your name and your story. It's preparation for your future, your calling, your life. And at Baylor, it's even more. Baylor, where lights shine bright.
Don's Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don's Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective, good Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
After my first car accident, I feared the biggest damage would be to my wallet. I expected a mountain of bills and a long, drawn-out process. But my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent was there when I needed her and helped me get back on my feet and in my car in no time. Instead of a hassle, I got reassurance and a quick recovery.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
So it all depends on who you listen to. It's all really in your own mind of the opinion of San Diego State and the Mountain West Conference. And Friday is when San Diego State made it clear that they want to stay involved in the Mountain West Conference, and probably because the life raft that they had thought was going to be thrown into the water never really was, or at least maybe it was, but it was yanked back, or they could not quite yet. We have too many people on the boat for right now. And so there was this story about the back and forth, the letters, one way or the other, San Diego State informing them, hey, we want to leave, but we need a couple of things. More time, and we want to pay less money. And then the Mountain West Conference said, okay, we understand. Thank you for your time. You've done a lot for us, and enjoy the Pac-12. And then, no, wait a minute. That's not what we said. And then the Mountain West, yes, that's what you said. I don't know. Maybe in the end, San Diego State turns out to be brilliant here. Kim Coulter on a super chat sent this to us, and really not much has changed since Friday, but maybe I missed it. Did the Mountain West refuse San Diego State's recommitting and now want the $17 million exit fee? There's going to be negotiations. There'll be a settlement no matter what it is. And in the end, maybe in 3 weeks, the Pac-12 reaches out and says, okay, we're ready for you. But it is kind of still a circus. And I don't know if San Diego State messed the bed or did they just listen to the wrong people?
Well, we had Mark Ziegler on the other day. He said that it was a definite shot in the dark that they took, to do this. And, then having to backtrack was because then they had no place to go. And the Mountain West at this point is just trying to, I'm sure, squeeze some pennies out of this. And they're going to have them for another year, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, this has gotten weird when they said, okay, no, we're going to stay, and like, yeah, but you just told us you were going to leave. So now, and then I think the number I saw was there like at least $6.6 million in media fees that they kind of wanted to.
That's the basketball stuff.
The basketball stuff that they were going to withhold. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. I'm sure it'll probably work out in the end somehow. But yeah, it just was really, San Diego State got out over their skis, and this is what they're not having to pay for it.
Well, I think that's the debate, though, is whether they did or not. Yeah. I mean, there's other people who seem to be of the opinion that San Diego State's playing like 4D chess here, and that the Mountain West was the one that got overly aggressive by stating that we didn't really mean this letter was not going to be treated as though, it was a suitable apology, and therefore they were going to act like the first letter meant what it was originally intended to mean. Like, no, they're moving on along as though everything's meant everything the way that they originally thought that it did. So basically, San Diego State could say what its intent was, but the Mountain West made it clear what they thought that intent actually was. San Diego State said, nuh-uh, and the Mountain West said, yes, no, that's how we're taking it. Whether all that was right or wrong in the end, I guess it is a matter of, okay, was that smart by the Mountain West to do that, or was that a stupid move and San Diego State actually pulled the wool over their eyes? This is the part that I need people's help on, though, because I didn't want to wait any further than I did the other night into this, because it was late when I was reading a lot of it, and it just got to be kind of the same old, mudslinging and all that after a while. But for the folks who believe that they outsmarted the Mountain West here, or that the Mountain West outsmarted itself here, explain to me why, because I saw a lot of, well, they're going to get what they want in the end anyways. And I saw that, though, in particular with the fee. But what didn't make sense to me was, so if I guess if they had waited and done it after July 1st, then it would have been the $34 million, right?
Yes.
So that wasn't what happened,
yeah.
though, and it was treated as though it was 17. So do y'all remember Paul wasn't here, but you remember what I said? I was like, well, it's going to be $17 million regardless, because they're even though San Diego, how did San Diego State intentionally do, because when they sent the letter and the Mountain West said, we're taking this as you're leaving, so then it was automatically $17 million right then and there.
Yeah.
At least to start negotiating with. Yes.
Right. So I don't understand how they were going to end up it worked out for them. I guess the Mountain West probably didn't think that through. I don't know there. And then, the other part I saw of it was, well, this gives them the deadline that they wanted to begin with. I don't know. It's very confusing.
But what if it's all going to be in writing, email
Right.
and or whatever? If San Diego State tries to come back and say, no, we really were leaving the conference, and yet they've written letters saying that, no, we really aren't leaving the conference, and so they really haven't officially said they're leaving.
Yeah, I mean, legally they've got an argument, but I just saw a lot of they pulled a fast one, and I'm just wondering how, because the Mountain West did give them an out by accepting that as it was written and not as they intended, obviously. So in that way, I get it. But how the whole part of how they're going to end up getting everything they want and more in the end, they're somehow going to not pay them much, and I understand, believing the Mountain West will welcome them back with open arms, and they'll eventually get their basketball money. I do think that would probably be the outcome, because the Mountain West would be kind of stupid to not bring them back eventually.
They're one of the best revenue-earning university and programs they have.
Right. No matter what acts you want to grind and what points you want to make, I think you've already kind of made it by fighting back with them and kind of puffing your chest out a little bit. But if you can squeeze more money out of a team that was just in the Final Four, for a couple more years or 2 to 5 more years, then you're certainly going to do that, as opposed to going without San Diego State, right? So, yeah, I was very confused on sort of the chest pumping that I saw on the other night. And I guess my biggest question with this whole thing is not even who got over on who, but my question is, okay, so they wanted the deadline, and then I guess in theory, had they not been granted that deadline and then they get the Pac-12 invite, they would have gotten that. They would have had to have paid $34 million, would have been negotiated down. Here's my only real question, because all the other stuff's kind of confusing.
It is.
How the hell would they not know by now whether or not they're getting a Pac-12 invite? Because I saw this just gives them more time to negotiate. How could they possibly not know for sure whether or not they're getting to the Pac-12?
You think they know?
They have to know.
They have to know.
That's the part that made no sense to me.
Then why renege on the letter?
Because maybe they're not getting an invite right now.
But
because what I'm talking about is more the point I saw. Well, they're going to get their cake and eat it too. They not only have to pay only $17 million, but they get to wait a little while longer, because they, I guess in a roundabout way, got their extended negotiating. Maybe that's what it was. They got their extended negotiating window by default in a way.
But they're not going to get. They're going to have $6.6 million of the NCAA tournament money. That revolving mixture of cash in the tournament that is being withheld from them right now. And I don't think San Diego State's in a position where they can just go without $6.6 million.
Yeah, I'm not saying they can.
So that letter cost them $6.6 at least in escrow, or so how you want to put it for right now.
I'm not talking about the $6.6 million.
I know what you're talking about, but that's on top of that.
Okay, yeah.
Now, 17 or 34 or 12 or 26, whatever they negotiate. But right now, it cost them getting a check for $6.6 million today.
Yeah.
Was
In the short term, for sure.
And in the end, that might go towards whatever that agreed upon exit fee might be.
Yeah, we're just talking about two different things.
Yeah,
I'm not really talking about the money side of it.
But I
so
do agree with Craig in that they either have to know that a Pac-12 invite is or when they made the decision,
right,
they had to feel like something was definitely coming, and they just knew that it wasn't going to come on June 30th.
You don't write that letter without having an official offer from the Pac-12.
Yeah, I mean, that you
well,
would think.
You do. If you're
apparently,
the people in charge of San Diego State, like, there's no doubt they messed that up. Like, they messed the okay, we can all agree on that. I think everybody can agree San Diego State jumped the gun a little bit. I'm a little fuzzy on, like, how they pulled one over ultimately by that letter being taken the way that it was. But I just see this like, that gives them more time to negotiate. That's the one part I'm like, okay, wait a second. How could they possibly not have an idea of where they're headed? And how could they possibly not know for sure at this stage? I mean, we're on the 1 year anniversary of them opening up the rights to be negotiated.
Do you have the graphic, Garrett? Craig, here's the graphic from 1 year ago today. The board of directors meeting, authorizing the conference to immediately begin negotiations for its next media rights agreement. So it is 1 year ago.
So for the folks who are talking about, this gives them more time. How could they? I just don't understand how 1 more month's going to make a difference, and then finally being deemed worthy enough to invite or not. Do you see where I'm coming from with this? I just feel like they have to know at some point already of their opportunity here. I just can't. It's July 5th. How could they not possibly know at this stage whether or not they're getting in?
They may have had discussions, but they may never have received an official invitation, however that protocol or whatever that is that you have to do to cross your T's and dot the I's. When they wrote the letter, and that letter came out to the Mountain West Conference, the first thing that came to my mind is they have an offer. They're just not sure exactly when it becomes official.
Right.
But this sounds like they have been discussing an offer, but now they're not so sure if it ever will come.
And I guess in theory, like, they have more time to negotiate, and that gives the Pac an opportunity to finish their TV deal and then move to realignment, like has been long talked about. But that was just crazy to me. I was sitting there going, like, are they really not aware even still if they're going to be getting an invite here pretty soon? And so they sent that letter without even knowing that for sure. Like I said, we can all agree that was just the stupidest move on their part to send that out.
And I've heard, though, as you have, that it might have been brilliant because of how the Mountain West responded.
Yeah, like I've seen some pose it as like, they sent that letter and they were intentionally, making it to where they're going to end up paying. I don't know. Like there's a lot of credit being given for something that was a hypothesis to begin with, and I was just trying to sort through it because I don't see where they made some brilliant play here. I think it all was just kind of mishandled, and everybody looks kind of dumb. And there will be resolution sooner rather than later. But I said that a year ago, I think, at one point as well. So I don't freaking know with this thing.
Adam McDonald. Could San Diego State survive as an independent? Adam, you didn't ask that question.
No.
I mean, with all due respect, I know some people don't care about them or not. No.
If they had to for a year or two, I mean, that's the thing I think that they probably would have to do.
And they might have been at one point an independent, but in today's America, college athletics, I think that would be very, very difficult to handle.
I'll just throw back to Tom Holmoe, the BYU AD we had on last week. I asked him specifically, how much longer could you guys have sustained this? He goes, not very much longer. Yeah. He's like the whole point.
That's a school that could be independent for a pretty lengthy time because of who they are.
Yeah, and they knew that like this had an expiration date on it. And not very much longer, could have wound up being a decade just because of circumstances, but in the grand scheme of things, 10 years isn't really that long in college athletics. So, like Liberty is technically independent right now, but they're joining a conference, and they were only independent as they transitioned into FBS football. So you have those things. So San Diego State could sit out for a year, but then you have to make a 12-game schedule out of nothing. Mm-hmm. And that'd be really hard if you had to do it just for, what you were right now. So no, they couldn't. I hope, I don't know if we'll ever know this, but I hope that if the Pac-12 finally gets a media deal done, there will be an explanation on their timeline that for those of us on the outside will go, that makes sense now. Because None of this stuff has made sense the whole time, but maybe because we don't have all the details, when we get all those details, well, wow, now I know why it seemed like such a mess.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of that, has been pointed to as maybe the nature of the deal and how it's all being set up. The whole it's super unique and, never been done before and all of that. And maybe that's part of it is just having to iron out all of these various details. Are the Pac-12 schools doing like all that conversation? Maybe that's what's getting ironed out. But, yeah, I just saw this almost like fist pump from like some San Diego State fans have like pulled one over. And I was like, yep. I don't get how you did, though, other than you're not paying $34 million. So
you don't know that.
Maybe that was it, is that by it being accepted and then you turning around and not having an invite, I don't know. I don't know.
I think you're almost complicating yourself. The bottom line is,
I'm just trying to talk through it.
No, I know, and it's a great conversation. But in the end, they're going to pay $17 million. What appears, no matter what, negotiated. They still might have to pay $34 million. They still might have to do that because
they might not have to pay any of that.
If they're the ones that say, "Hey, we didn't actually decide to leave the conference," but in the end, it's going to be probably 17, 15, 14, 12. I don't know what it is that they'll owe.
I guess maybe them crawling back afterwards after that deadline, and it would have been 34 instead of 17. But regardless, it was a mess that blew up in their face. It would have been a lot smoother to just say, like, hey, here was the official letter when you knew you were leaving, and you could then, post your graphic of having this Pac-12, logo now on all your facilities and do it like everybody else has seemingly done it over the last year, the 6 schools that have moved on the Power 5 level. But instead, it's been kind of a messy deal that's going to require some explanation after it all settles.
But how can the Pac-12 officially invite somebody when they themselves don't know who they have?
Right.
Because they haven't been able to, at least yet, whenever they do, release their own television deal. And even Brett Yormark said that. We're not going to add anybody if we don't know for sure we're going to get additional money or at least pro rata, which is what Fox has said they would do / ESPN, if it was a team or two or how many from the Pac-12. So there's that.
If you're a San Diego State fan or somebody who understands where they were coming from with how they won in the end regardless, then please give me a simple explanation so I can just solve this little problem in my head and make sense of it. But, I do think it's notable that they came back and said, no, we plan on staying, actually. And, again, it goes back to, if you're San Diego State, you have to know by now whether you're getting in or not. So wouldn't that indicate that you don't feel that you're getting in? Or is that just an attempt to try and, not pay the hefty – like, that's the part of it, too, is if you were saying you were coming back, were you just going to, in a couple of weeks, when you got the official invite, say, no, just kidding? Or, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
No, you don't.
I know exactly what, Garrett?
They made an alliance, and it blew up.
Well, that's never happened before with the Pac-12 and another, the case of the ACC and Big Ten, and they were used in that one. I wish San Diego, I feel for them. I really do, because I don't know if they're also twisted in the wind. Is SMU? I feel for them. We know how Memphis felt. We know how others have felt. We know how even Brigham Young and what Tom Homo said, they felt like back when the Big 12 did that big, hey, send us all of your information, and then there was just basically to just kind of make them look better, and nobody was invited. So I feel for San Diego State. We had a couple of chats that like, who cares about them? They might be the link of what is the next part of whatever changes in college football. And again, it might just be like a tree dropping in the forest or falling and nobody hears it. I don't know. Spencer, they put their money on a moron. I want to feel sorry for San Diego State, but I can't. No, I do. I mean, you want to be a part. We've heard what Cincinnati, what UCF, what Brigham Young and Houston have said about how they can't wait to be a part of a Power 5, who have been spit on before, rejected before, teased before, and now they're in. So I get it for someone that's trying to get into being a Power 5. At least I do. But it is confusing. It's like, but yeah. I saw this on the chat room, in 365 premium section, Craig, the same thing you were asking. Somebody wasn't a San Diego State alum or professor or anybody. It was like, I think that somehow or another, based on law, that San Diego State might have just outsmarted everybody. So I saw that feeling too. Adam McDonald, would Yormark make a TV deal exception for San Diego State? No. If they can't bring in the same amount of money that each team is getting right now without lowering the amount of money for each team, then there's no interest in anybody. None. There is that possibility of off-to-the-side basketball awareness and exposure, but no.
I don't think, the San Diego State, we talked to Mark Ziegler the other day, and go back and listen to that interview. We asked him about the Big 12, and he's like, look, if the Big 12 is the conference that they can go to, then they will, but there's really not been, that's not their goal. They want to be in the Pac-12. That's their focus, and I don't think the Big 12 has spent a whole lot of time kicking the tires on San Diego State either, other than that kind of similar what-if scenario.
Roger Dodger, everyone take a chill pill. San Diego State is a school first, and sports is just sports. Well, we've heard that before from a lot of schools on the West Coast.
We have heard that.
And that doesn't mean it's not true. And then Roger learned the difference. Then why did San Diego State send the letter to the Mountain West Conference? Why? That's the question. Yeah, there's a lot of schools. We had Ivan Maisel on earlier about what Stanford, and he's not worried about them because of their academia and who they represent and what they are. But San Diego State is not Stanford. And if that's what it matters, if it's academia or if it's school is school, which I would love to see more of around the country, but that battle is changing. And for some schools, they're hanging on. Baylor is trying to hang on to that too. Lorenzo, San Diego State sent a note saying that they're staying. What happens if the meeting on the 17th of this month, the Mountain West votes to increase the fee, any further attempts to leave?
Well, I don't think they can do that, right? Because when it was the exit was $17 million because it was official before July 1st. Yeah. So it's set in stone. When they said, no, we're not accepting that you were just exploring the idea, we took that as you were starting your exit officially. That's how we're taking it. The clock starts ticking, and because it was before July 1st or whatever, well, it's $17 million.
Can the Mountain West use that letter against San Diego State?
Well, I mean, that's lawyer stuff right there. Yeah.
Use that letter against the Mountain West? But who knows? It's now July the 5th. Nothing else really has changed since the letters went back and forth. And the news that came out on Friday that Craig and Paul discussed quite a bit. When we come back, so there's the new Big 12, right? With the 14 teams minus Texas and Oklahoma after 23 and 24. At West Coast CFB, put out a couple of notes. We'll get to this in the next segment and discuss. Now, I wish this was a little bit better, like broken down into the even more recent decades. But of the 12 schools that will remain to the original Big 12, how many or who has been a part of the top 25 AP poll in football the most since 1980 or since 1990? And I'm working on getting since 2000. This is 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, they are the people that you can count on, not only for a great ride, but great customer service, great deals as well to be had all over the lot, as right now they're celebrating their 24th anniversary sales event. They've got dozens of Sierra trucks on the lot right now. Qualified buyers can save, for example, $3,000 on the 23 GMC Sierra SLT or SLE 1500s. You can get 2.9% financing on a new 2023 GMC Sierra trucks, but there's big savings on pre-owned cars and trucks, and that doesn't include just the Sierra. You got the Buick Envision SUVs as well, a luxury ride without the luxury price. That goes for the entire Buick lineup, the Encores, the Envisions, the Enclaves, all 2023s. Right now, qualified buyers can get low financing, save $2,500 on Enclave Premium, $3,500 on Enclave Avenir. They've also got a lot full of, as I mentioned, quality pre-owned cars and trucks, many of those under $20,000 that are affordable, thoroughly inspected, ready to finance for almost any credit rating, and perhaps you're just looking to drive your car or truck a little while longer. Well, in that case, their award-winning service department is standing by to keep you on the road. Go to richardcar.com to see service specials and set an appointment for quick and reliable repair. For 24 years, they've been in business in Central Texas, and over that time, they built a reputation as the people you can count on for your automotive needs, run by proud Central Texans. Log on to richardcar.com today. Call now or go see them now off Highway 6 at the Imperial exit.
It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money, and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Chuck Verno, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Chuck Verno, 720 North 64th Street in Waco, 254-732-1161. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma. And they have to come here. They're used to lights. They're used to water in their mouth. They're used to experience. They already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, locally owned pizza place that's out of this world. Everything from the dough, the sauce, the sausage topping is made fresh in-house. Not to mention the amazing pizza pillows, the chicken wings are to die for. Try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries or tots, plus great specials on food and drink every single day. Shorty's is also the perfect spot to watch the game with your friends. Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby. Tell them Paul sent you by.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
I sent a note to Jason Cook. He is the head of information. He is the dude at Baylor. And about Dr. Livingstone and when's the next time she might be available. And he said, you know, the Big 12 is just now getting around to getting that out publicly because of Lawrence Shabonic and the timeline of his last day. But if you'll remember, we kind of released that about a year ago, that she would be, and of course now in that role as the chairperson or spokesperson of the Big 12 the next couple of years. So, all right, so you got these 12 teams without Texas and Oklahoma following this year, because Texas and Oklahoma would by far be the highest on both these lists. But the incoming 12 schools among the 8 remaining schools, 4 schools and 8. So this came from West Coast College Football. The AP poll since 1980, who has been ranked the most times within the top 25? Brigham Young, that does not surprise me. West Virginia, Of course, they've had a couple, 2 or 3 runs in their career, in their history, in the last 42 years. Oklahoma State, Kansas State, the Bill Snyder years twice. TCU, let's not forget, they've been really good at times in the Big 12, including last year, but 2014. But they also went undefeated, won the Rose Bowl back in 2000, I think it was 10. Then Baylor, Houston, Cincinnati Tech, UCF, Kansas, and then Iowa State. Those are the ones who have been the most since 1980. So I asked him, could you cut it off at 1990 and also 2000? He did send me 1990 and beyond, and it changes a little bit. Kansas State. Because Bill Snyder started to get Kansas State where they were really, really good. Once they kind of got into the early to middle part of the 1990s and learned they could win. And they learned how to win and almost played for a national title in 1998. Oklahoma State, Mike Gundy, we've seen it. This is even before him, but they've been good pretty much on and off consistently. West Virginia, TCU, Brigham Young, followed by Baylor, Cincinnati, Houston, and then pretty much the same schools, Texas Tech, UCF, Kansas, and Iowa State. What does that mean? Nothing. But at the same time, it kind of puts it into perspective. And I'll try to get the list from 2000 and current when we get a chance to look it up myself and or hear back from West Coast CFB.
Oh, so obviously you'll notice that UCF's number didn't change at all because they've not been around.
They weren't born yet.
Which really makes that upsetting if you're Kansas and Iowa State.
No, yeah.
In having all that much more time and still being behind UCF and in that. That's how bad they've been in football.
Yeah, and also some credit to UCF for being good enough to be in the poll that many times in a short amount of time. I mean, to eclipse those two and their totals. It's interesting to look at. I mean, obviously a lot of variables involved in this. But it's a nice picture to paint of just kind of where everybody's stacked up over time, and don't expect it to stay chalk, but do think that there is, something to that, and those programs that have, obviously found themselves at the top have done it for, a longer time, a more consistent time. So,
UCF, by the way, they actually started and looked at football in 1979. I wasn't waving at you, I was waving at Garrett. In 1979, so that 1980, they were just like in diapers when it comes to being any kind of a program in college football. So there's the numbers there, and if I get 2000 and beyond, I'll try to send that to you. Now, a couple of other notes over the weekend. Pretty good weekend for Texas Tech when it comes to commitments, including Weiss defensive back. You guys remember Peyton Morgan? We did that game at Mary Hardin Baylor in Belton. We knew that team was spectacular. I remember him. Peyton Morgan committed, the defensive back committed to Texas Tech. He wasn't the only one, but that was one of the ones that popped over the weekend. Also, Baylor got a commitment from Alex Foster from Missouri. There's the tweet right there. My mom, or being my rock through it all, for without them, this would not be possible, including mentioning God. Excited to announce I'm committed to Baylor. Respect my decision, sick 'em. So they get a commitment over the weekend from a young man out of Missouri. Also, Kylan Fox, tight end, UCF, 4-star player out of Georgia, choosing the Knights over Florida State, Colorado, Georgia Tech. I only want elite players to join me, Jalen Howard, LaWayne McCoy, and Brendel Richardson. Nice pickup for UCF. Also, one other one, A&M. This was big. A 5-star wide receiver out of Alabama, Cameron Coleman. They got Draylon Miller late last week. Now Cameron Coleman. And, because they had made such a splash in 2022's class, and you kind of wonder, and then the disappointing year, don't forget about them because they're starting to make a move. And there will be others who surge up the charts, but A&M with a couple of big-time wide receiver commits in recent days, including 5-star wide receiver Cameron Coleman.
I was on last year before the season with David Nuno at Texags, and he was talking about, before I came on the show with him, about, if you were looking at A&M, 2021 into 2022, what was the missing piece, and it was quarterback. That if they could get that right, then things would go well. Well, quarterback and offense took such a gigantic step back. You would think, in one regard of thinking that people would stop buying on Jimbo Fisher and all that. Well, it's still A&M and the SEC. It's still the gigantic amounts of NIL money that they're going to have and that everybody, assumes and thinks that they have. And, people are still going to go there. Now, whether Jimbo can turn what he's done into legitimate wins and contending for the conference title remains to be seen, but he is kind of starting to tread on that end of the Mac Brown era territory in that he's getting players that everybody wants, but he's not really doing much with them right now. And so these guys that's great that they're getting these big time number one in the country wide receivers and all that, but can you keep them for more than a year or two, and can you get anything out of them while they're there?
Yeah, I mean, great pickups. Congrats to all those guys who made their choices. But that's great for A&M. Somebody on one of the recruiting websites, I guess, had put an Auburn prediction in like hours before he committed to A&M. So, oops. I don't know if he just had kept it so close to the vest or not, but it was funny because that led to a Texas fan, just some rando that, was talking trash to A&M, and I think Billy Lucci in particular, you're basically calling out their reporting, or I guess suggesting that A&M could land this guy because somebody predicted he was going to now go to Auburn. And, well, the prediction that you were using as your reason to talk trash was actually the wrong part of the information, and it was A&M getting this guy. So I found that funny, and, that kind of interaction has never stopped, even though those two teams have not been playing each other. But I'd imagine now it's just going to ramp up and be ridiculous, all the time, with a lot more emotion attached because now it affects one another directly. So that was just a funny little interaction I saw of trying to dunk on somebody and just completely missing the rim, basically. And in fact, it turning out to be a major A&M recruiting win. So, good for them. And I mean, recruiting's not what I worry about with them.
Right.
I mean, what are they going to do? Finish top 5 in recruiting? What's everybody going to do? I don't know. Wait and see how it plays out because, until the end result changes, I don't think anybody's really super concerned, respectful, believe, hey, you're bringing on good players, but ultimately, Jimbo's going to have to put the whole thing together and, go make some actual waves on the field and go win the division or, do something along those lines to change that just long-held perception that they've got all the tools. They just don't know how to quite, build the car
start the car,
whatever you want to compare it to. Getting the tools isn't the problem, but let's see what Jimbo can build with it.
One of the other things, again, with them is, though, to me, at least from my perspective, and I don't follow, there's going to be commitments and things that show up on my timeline, and I get that. And not just Baylor, but Texas Tech or UCF or whatever, and it's kind of been fun to see what they're doing. Cincinnati picks up someone up over the weekend, and it's that time of the year. But it's almost like they just evaporated. But they were so bad. It was such a disappointing year coming off such an amazing class in which some of that's been attrition that, wait a minute, are they struggling with this? No, they're not going to struggle with it. They're always going to be able to recruit well, just like some of the other schools that recruit well, but don't always it transfers into wins and losses. One other note over the weekend in college basketball, Joe Toussaint from West Virginia, who entered the transfer portal after Bob Huggins resigned. There were thoughts he could end up at Kansas State, among others. He just decided he's going to play for Grant McCaslin, and Texas Tech averaged 10 points and 3 rebounds a game.
All of that NIL money that they've raised just at West Virginia for basketball. Raised a ton of it. All of that money that they raised and tried to make a run with Bob Huggins in what was probably going to be one of his last 2 years of coaching anyway, 69 years old, but trying to make a run and make West Virginia relevant in the conference, just all for naught now, really, because of what happened.
They kept Chrisham. There was a couple of others that looked like they were going to leave, and they've decided to stay.
Kept who?
Carissa. And So they were able to manage a little bit of that based on the interim head coach. But you wonder if that was just putting a Band-Aid on what is a large scar.
They can't play for Huggy Bear. He's not there anymore. And that's you come to play for the coach. He's resigned. He's got to deal with his own personal issues and has to get that right. So now that he's not there, it was going to happen. But they were really confident going in that they were going to be able to finally make some waves in the Big 12 again after a couple years of not being as relevant, which West Virginia is a basketball school. If there ever was one, they love it. But the last couple years have not been up to their standard, and maybe they'll get back to where they're making those runs again. But you would think that this year might be really wonky for them.
You hope that they win for the sake of the interim coach, because otherwise, you're right. It could be, like, not going to say rats jumping off a ship. That would not be fair. But it could be as if, okay, who's going to find a life raft somewhere else, incoming or also already a part of the current roster. 4:48 is the time. Now, Brett McMurphy, Action HQ Network, covers college football, put this out, a couple of different tweets. He did not do the research, or he's not the one, but he's quoting Colin, who might be joining this show on Friday. He was on his way on a vacation, spoke with him by text, if I can say that, communicated with him by text, and probably available on Friday after vacation. Here are the teams based on @_Colin1, who works for Action Network HQ, who are going to be favored in the amount of games to the left. There's no surprise here. Alabama, Georgia, Louisville?
In 12 games?
Michigan and Washington. All right? Now, Jeff Brom's pretty good, but that means he's ahead of at least some of these teams I'm about to mention with 11. Clemson, Florida State. Florida State is at Clemson, is projected as a pick'em. Then you have Liberty, North Carolina, Ohio State, Oklahoma 11. Texas, South Alabama, Toledo, Tulane, Utah, and Wisconsin will be favored, at least projected at this particular time, as favored in 11 of their games.
Okay, looking at Louisville's schedule, other than, Notre Dame is at home, and it's in the middle of the season, so maybe by that time, if Louisville's on a roll, I can see.
Are they playing Clemson and Florida State?
They are not.
Okay.
They are not.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Now, go to 10. This one, to me, jumped out at me and grabbed me by the nostril hairs. Not Air Force, Baylor. That's not what I think, but again, I'm not the guy looking at the odds and the trends and the data and all that. Boise State, Coastal Carolina, Maryland, Navy, Ole Miss, Oregon, Troy, and Western Kentucky. Can you guys see, which means other than Oklahoma and maybe Texas, I would think that Baylor would be favored against everybody else on their schedule?
Absolutely not.
No. Look, if they
don't know how to beat TCU, so there's one.
Well, Texas, they're not going to be – if you just go by this, you would assume that Texas is one of the games. He's not going to have them –
No, Texas and OU. No, they don't play Oklahoma, so Texas is one, yeah.
But 2 weeks later, they play Texas Tech. Now, that game's at home. I don't think they'll be favored in that game.
I don't know.
We just gotta let Texas Tech win some games first. We really do. I respect Joey McGuire. I respect the build, and I know what that looks like when it starts to really get to a certain point. But we just can't start having them just be favorites automatically over teams.
Kim Coulter, you hearing that? Because Kim's kind of using that us against the world mentality that there's no way we can win because everyone's expecting them to be a lot better.
Okay, but they're at Kansas State, so that would probably be one of the two that he had. And then at TCU, a place that,
But then there's only three. There's only two games.
They play Utah in week 2.
There you go.
I don't even know that they're going to be favored in that game, and it's in Waco. But I don't know that, but this is as of right now. So if as of right now, if people feel like they're going to be favored in those games, I think that's a hell of a compliment because I wouldn't have them favored against TCU. I wouldn't have them favored against Utah. I wouldn't have them favored against Kansas State. I might not have them favored against Texas Tech
or Texas
I would not have them favored against Texas. Yeah. So I'm definitely I don't understand where that's coming from, but they play 8 home games. I think people just assume they're going to be better because they were so just lost last year. But yeah, I think 10 is bit too much for me to go with.
I'm not assuming anything other than the fact it means that most likely Utah and Texas are the teams because of who they are above them with 11 of those games.
And I do think Texas Tech's going to be good, and I do think that they will probably use that chip on the shoulder. People don't believe in us, even though they're getting all of the attention this offseason. I just think, can we let them do it, though? Because we got, they'll beat Baylor, and then they're going to beat, and it's just let's see them play a little bit first, but I do agree that they should be very good.
If they get the win against Oregon early,
right,
then all bets are off. And Kim, who thinks Texas Tech is going to be very, very good, has kind of taken on, am I right, Kim? Our friend from Arizona, great friend of the show, that, no, man, they can't win anything. Now it's almost as if they're getting so much attention, you get a little nervous with that, although if you're a Texas Tech fan, this is what you've been wanting, is that kind of attention. So those are the ones most likely favored in the certain amount of games with the list at the top, other than Louisville, and then you explain that they're not playing Clemson or Florida State. They have Notre Dame at the top along with that other group.
And there's Texas Tech favored to win 9 games.
Yep.
I mean, 9-3 would be a game more than last year, right? And they finished 8-5. So that'd be a nice bump. Game gained, and winning 9 games in year 2 of Joey McGuire would be a really big deal. We had 17 wins over 2 years. I mean, that'd be huge. But yeah, I feel like, kind of to Kim's point, it's not a knock on them. It's just let them earn it, though, and don't over hyperventilate the hype machine before we even get to kickoff time. But if they start off and they beat Oregon in Lubbock, and they start off 3-0, 4-0, or whatever, and they get, I've said all along that I think they're going to be in that upper tier, and I don't know that everybody agrees with that necessarily, but I think the majority of people do. So yeah, I believe that the hype is worth it. We just need to kind of chill out a little bit on it and let them, show why they got that hype to begin with.
All right, now go to the opposite way. And if I had the money and I figure out where this is, I'm going to go straight to the third row. Oklahoma State would be underdogs in 10 of their 12 games. I don't care what people may think about last year and how it worked in the transition or the attrition or the struggles or whatever, and how I will, if I can, find this link and I will put something on it that they would be underdogs 10 times out of 12.
That doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't.
That's
just
like a slap in the face to history of what Gundy's done at Oklahoma State.
I can pull up their schedule, and
I'm looking at it right now as well.
So that means they're not favored against okay, so they're going to be favored against South Alabama and Central Arkansas. So you're telling me that every other game they're not favored in. So they're not favored at Arizona State. Well, that's the Kenny Dillingham effect, I guess. Ames, okay. Well, you never know there. Hosting K-State, okay. Hosting Kansas, okay. At West Virginia, they're not going to be favored just because Morgantown rep, the rep that Morgantown has, I guess. Hosting Cincinnati, they're not going to be favored. Come on now. Okay, I'll give you Morgantown. I'll give you Ames, but not even favored over Cincinnati in Stillwater?
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense.
Well, okay, he's going to be on, and so you guys can follow up with this on where he's getting this information based on analytics or whatever, or based on his trends and whatever he knows. He will probably be on the show Friday.
That's great. At Houston, I'm taking Oklahoma State in that game right now. Give me Oklahoma State in that game. Even home against BYU at the end of the. So yeah, that's weird. I would not have them as 10-game underdogs. I'd maybe 7 or 8 or something like that.
This is not based on point spreads. That's a different animal. This is based on a power ranking, just like ESPN has one, and CBS has one, and The Athletic has one, and On3 has one. But hey. That's based on his power ratings, based on where he has teams rated. I'm sure not because he just throws this up against the wall and lets the spaghetti. This is what he thinks. That's how these are based.
Yeah, nobody's knocking his work or anything.
They are.
They are. Okay. Well, I'm not looking at chat. So sometimes you talk and we can't tell who you're directing it to. So if chat's doing that, okay, that's one thing. But yeah, I don't agree on the Oklahoma State. So when we talk to him, we can talk about that because I see at least a handful of games that they should be favored in. But he'll have his reasons and explain it to us, and we'll either come to an agreement, or we'll still disagree. But that's the beauty of the whole, sports
and based
debate.
On you're right. And based on my media poll, I think there's a chunk between like 3, 4, or like 9. Well, I don't know how to make up my mind on the Big 12, and maybe he has some teams ranked higher than we do.
For example, he has Colorado at 11 times, which I can see they'll 9 for sure.
11 times they'll be the underdog.
They'll be underdog.
Oh, I thought you were about to say favorites.
Yeah.
I was about to say, I'm about to go in on this. I'm sorry.
No, TCU, Nebraska, Oregon, USC, Arizona State, all those for sure. Stanford, they'll probably be a favorite there. Colorado State, I guess we'll see what happens. I think that one is going to be interesting. That's the third game of the season. But at UCLA, they're not going to be a favorite. Oregon State, not going to be a favorite. So on and so on. So,
well, he'll be on most likely Friday's show to be able to have a chance. From Wet Blanket, please keep doubting. Well, you can talk to Colin on Friday about that. We just backed up why Oklahoma State should not be on that list, at least that many numbers. Coming up next, Phil Bennett, longtime college football coach. His thoughts about college football today, and he is going to, based on my conversation with him earlier, join us again on Mondays at 5 to look back at the college football weekend starting mid to late August, and this is 365 Sports. Alan Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco. And today, until tonight when they close their doors, a lot of those discounts available with the 4th of July sales event for Ram, for Dodge, and also for Jeep. For example, they have specials on Ram trucks. The 2023 Ram 1500 Lone Star Crew Cab, you can get money off of that, discount offer money, or 2.9% for 72 months. The 2023 Jeep Gladiator Sport with total values up to $6,000. If that's not enough, the 2023 Jeep Compass, 10% off MSRP. And then the 2023 Dodge Challenger or the Dodge Charger, SXT, GT, or RT, total values up to $2,000, and all first responders get $500 in additional cash available to you. It runs through tonight. Then the 4th of July sales event for Ram, Jeep, and Dodge at Allen Samuels will end, and they'll start more getting in front of you when it comes to vehicles. Which are you looking for? Trucks, SUVs, and regular cars as well. And they have a ton of pre-owned available. It's Allen Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Ted Teague, the general manager, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB, your bank for life. Member FDIC.
Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new 3 Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning 3 Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton. Boozers is the wedding ring store and more. If you're ready to get engaged or already married and want to upgrade your wife's ring for a special anniversary, Boozers is the place to go. With the largest selection of premier quality diamond engagement rings and wedding rings in Central Texas. They have 7 cases with over 300 styles of rings from top designers like Natalie Kay. Choose from yellow, white, or rose gold, plus beautiful top quality loose diamonds. With an in-house jewelry, they can also custom make anything you want. Bring in a picture or drawing and let Boozers create your one-of-a-kind pendant or ring. They can even use some of your old gold and diamond jewelry to create something new. At Boozers, you'll find a great selection of quality timepieces, and Boozers is the place for expert watch maintenance and repairs too. They specialize in expert Rolex watch repair for fine jewelry, watches, custom work, and more. Go to Boozers on Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Boozers, the wedding ring store and more.
This is 365 Sports. Are you a Sikkim 365 super fan? Then try out our premium subscriptions at Sikkim365.com.
Well, we aren't the same if we don't have longtime college football head coach and assistant coach Phil Bennett, former Texas A&M football player as well, with us on the show. It's been too long, and we hope the news is that throughout the football season, Coach Bennett will join us for Truth Serum on Mondays or whenever day he picks after a college football weekend. Well, how's retirement?
Well, you know, I've been, believe it or not, I've been busy, and so that's good. I find things to do. You know, my brother Jerry has had some health issues, and I've been down there. I don't know if you know this, Smoak, but my daughter and my son-in-law have moved to actually Waco. He's coaching at Waco Midway with Coach Anderson.
I did know that.
So I've been back and forth there. I just had a brand new grandson. He's in Scott and White right now, to getting a little bit more treatment. But so I've been active and I've enjoyed it.
All right, so in August, when everyone starts to blow their whistles, how much will you get the EBGBs?
You know, I was thinking about when we texted earlier today. It's the dog days of summer, and this is where I used to do all my, pre-planning, what I had to do to be creative and to get the depth chart. So it's already started a little bit, but. It's different when you're almost 70 years old. I'm not as smart as I thought I was, and I don't have the energy I used to have. So, but I can still talk about it.
Coach, we had Bruce Feldman on last week, and he wrote a column about defensive coordinators who coach on teams that run the air raid, the wide open offense, and you were at the forefront of that. I was kind of surprised he didn't call you, in that you guys were almost kind of like the guys who were working on penicillin before they figured it out, because it had to be, for you growing up in all these different eras of college football, pretty jarring to have to rethink everything you ever knew about how to coach and have a team ready so quickly to go back out on the field.
You know, Paul, what's funny about that, I started in the wishbone with Emory Ballard. And that was a defensive coach's dream. You played about 45, 50 plays a game. And then ended my career, basically, at Baylor, where we played, I think during my 6 years there, I think we played 16 possessions a game, which is, sometimes more than twice than other people. But you know, it was a different philosophy. But once we got it down, and I think we've discussed this before, total yards became non-existent, and points became more important by how many possessions. You know, it's how many stops you could get. You know, Smoak and I used to talk about, you know, if you can get, when I was at Baylor, if we could get 3 stops in a row in the beginning of the game, very few times did we ever lose.
Coach, how similar is what Sonny Dykes does and what he'll be doing with Kendall Briles compared to what he was doing last year with Garrett Riley? I mean, there's a lot of the familiar faces that we just kind of touched on, and stylistically, how similar is what they're going to try to do compared to what you guys did back then, or even what we saw from them a year ago?
Yeah, you know, I think they'll be somewhat similar. You know, one of the things Kendall was a little bit he had to be different, and I thought he did a really good job at Arkansas of being creative with the players that he had. I know Art and I talked one time, and Art told him, he said, hey, you know, you can't be, and that's one of the things I always loved about Art. He said, you've got to be able to manage and do the things your players can do. And I thought Kendall really did that at Arkansas with his quarterback. You know, he never had a great running back. Their offensive line wasn't great. So he slowed the game, the quarterback run game. He did some things. I think at TCU, he might have a more explosive group of guys that he will get back to what he wants to do. And that's what, you know, Art and those guys did, spreading the field, tempo, and making the defense try to react to them.
I got to ask you this, Phil, because talking about Kendall and also Lebby's at Oklahoma, and we know, you know, coaches are all throughout America since the breakup of the coaching staff after 2016. When you see everybody back landing on their feet, you, of course, Arizona State, and then at at North Texas, what do you think?
You know, I think there was a lot of unnecessary hard times. You know, Randy Clements and Jeff Lebby went to an NAIA school, rode buses for 17 hours just to stay in coaching. And that pisses me off, quite honestly, because they never did anything but represent what they did at Baylor at top notch. You know, Kendall had to go to FAU, and, you know, I don't like what transpired and what they had to go through, but I admire where they're at now. I think, you know, Smoak, we always talk about, you know, the cream rises. I think they all have worked their way back through the stigma of the situation to where they're well respected. And obviously, you know, Jeff did an unbelievable job at OU and UCF, everywhere he's been, Ole Miss, and then Clem is at North Carolina. So I admire what they've done and how they've done it. They haven't cried. They just worked their way back up there.
What is Auburn getting in Philip Montgomery?
Oh, it's getting a great football coach. You know, Philip was on the forefront of what we were doing and was just a major role player. When I first got to Baylor, and the 4 years that I spent with Philip, he did a wonderful job. You know, he's creative. He has art vision in what he does. And you know, quite honestly, at Tulsa, they could move the ball, but it became such a hard job in other areas that he was still a guy that you know, his quarterback will throw forever. I think he will be a great asset for Auburn.
Phil Bennett, longtime football coach with us on 365 Sports. So, you know, Paul just mentioned Montgomery. All right, so I know that the Big 12 now has the 4 incoming schools. That became official at midnight on Friday. Which of those 4, just based on maybe just looking at them, UCF, who you faced in a bowl game, different team, Cincinnati, who made a run 2 years ago, Houston with Dana, and then Brigham Young, who's basically been a a Power 5 conference team for a long, long time. Which one of them do you feel like is more suited immediately for the Big 12?
I would have to say, and you mentioned it, will probably BYU, because they've played that type of schedule, being an independent. They've played in the big games. I mean, I can remember, when we were, they were playing everybody who was anybody. But at the same time, I think Gus at UCF has got the commitment level. I think with Tillman Fertitta's backing at U of H and their new stadium, they're building a new football ops thing. And I can remember during my early years of playing, I mean, when Houston, you could remember this. When they came in the conference, hell, they won it the first year they were in it. Mm-hmm. So I would never. Now, I think that, and I've thought about this because I've tried to discuss some things, but I think Cincinnati, with a new coaching staff, it's going to be a little bit of a drop off of where they've been with Fickle, because he had done such a good job and got it into that situation. But I think they're all good programs, and I think they'll fit the league good.
What do you think about your alma mater and Jimbo Fisher bringing in Bobby Petrino to run the offense, and some of the changes that they've made to bounce back from an abysmal 5-7 season?
Well, I think this. I thought last year, and we all know this, and I'm not an excuse maker, but I just felt like that there wasn't a chemistry there for whatever reason. They led the country in the late of games. It was obvious that the game has evolved a little bit. I think Jimbo's a good coach, but I think offensively he needed someone. He's got to take care of the overall program, and they had too many things happen last year that just showed that he wasn't able to. He wasn't at that point management. I think Bobby can come in and help him a lot, and give him time to work with other things. Even to the point, help DJ. Hey, this is what I want on defense. They struggled last year with their 3-3 front, trying to stop the run against Appalachian and against Ole Miss. They got where they couldn't stop. So I think having a guy, and I'm a Bobby Petrino fan. I think I've played against him. I think he's an excellent coach. I think if the chemistry's there, which I saw him in town one time, and I had a short visit with him, and he seems to think that it is. I think that they can be vastly improved. Also, I think the schedule in the SEC is for them is going to be better than it's been in a long time. I've said this for many years. The SEC is a great conference, probably the best, but they're not a true top to bottom conference. If you look last year, Texas Tech, dominated Ole Miss in the bowl game, but the upper level guys, the Georgias, nobody's been able to touch them, and I don't know how many. Can y'all tell me right now who you think the top 4 SEC teams are going to be? Obviously, Alabama's going to break in a new quarterback. Georgia's going to break in a new quarterback. Tennessee is going to have the guy. So it's going to be interesting to see, and I think A&M maybe can get to their first their game against Alabama. They might be undefeated and might have a chance to get hot.
Yeah, I think definitely LSU will be in there as well, but your point's taken there. There are some question marks for sure, and it is very top. I mean, they've not just got the top, they got like the elite of the elite with a couple of those in Georgia and Alabama for sure. And sticking on A&M for a second, just as putting your fan cap on, and I know it's a year away, but what are your thoughts on the renewal of Texas and Texas A&M here in just a year's time?
I'm going to tell you something. I was at a function Saturday night. I coached that win, and we're very close. And they, y'all might have seen it, but they did a documentary on him. Anyway, we were talking, and something was said to me. I never thought about this, but they've not played since 2011. And the younger kids really have never valued the younger fans that game. Having coached in it, played in it, I'm telling you, it has hurt me to the bone that A&M and Texas have not played, because it is one. And I've been in some great rivalries. It is one. I mean, to be involved in it as a player and a coach, I mean, it's just electrifying. And I am tickled to death that it's going to happen. And I'm still hopeful that it's going to be in Thanksgiving. I mean, every one of us that have grown up in Texas, always look forward to Thanksgiving for that reason. So
Yep.
I'm excited about it. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm disappointed it's going to be in the SEC, but that's just the way it is now.
That Thanksgiving, you had Auburn, Alabama, Nebraska, OU, A&M, and Texas. And I know there were other games too, like Ole Miss, Mississippi State, the Egg Bowl, whatever.
But those were the big
those
three.
were the dogs, right? Those were the alphas in college football. So, speaking of Texas, they're about to move into the SEC. It appears as if Sarkisian has turned the corner. Maybe they have grit, they have a better culture, they have a little edge to them. Do you see that, or is that just fool's gold again?
I'm going to tell you, it's to me, you've got to prove it. I'm not. I think he's a good coach. I think Gary Patterson helped them immensely on defense. I know he did. They got better. They got sounder there. And I think Quinn is a good quarterback. A great one, I don't know. Losing Bijan Robinson, I mean, is going to be huge. And then I haven't seen them. I thought last year against Texas, maybe if Ewan hadn't got hurt, against Alabama, they could have won that game and maybe should have won it. But week in and week out, I've also saw them against Texas Tech, and they were, they just weren't good enough to beat Tech at Lubbock. And so the consistency and all the different things coming together, I know you can say they've got better players, but I'm going to have to see it.
Phil Bennett with us, 365 Sports, former Baylor defensive coordinator with us with Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina, and David Smoak.
Do you have a favorite A&M and Texas game that you were coaching in or playing in?
Oh, yeah. Coach Roll's last game as a coach in 1976. It was a Thanksgiving night in Austin, and we Earl was banged up a little bit. He still played, but we beat Texas. I think it was 27-6, and it was at that point of the year we had lost a close game. We'd lost two very close games. We ended up 10-2, 11-2. And I thought at the end of the year we were the best team in the country at A&M, best team I'd ever been involved in, the best team I was involved in any fashion at A&M. And we won the game, dominated the game in Austin, and then went on to beat a very good Florida team in the Sun Bowl. Of course, you say, well, Sun Bowl. Back then, hell, there were only 10 and 11 bowls. So if you played in a bowl, you were a top level team. But and then Coach Roll ended up, I think he was 54, 55 years old, retiring after that.
What will you miss the most about coaching?
I'll tell you, I've said this before, just the interaction with the players, the coaches, everybody. I've always, people don't realize how many people it takes to run a program. I told you this one time at Baylor, Smoak. I was good friends with the trainers, the managers, the equipment people. Mike Sims and Mike Sims is one of the best I've ever been around. Everywhere I've been, it takes so many people to do it, and to come together for one cause. I try to prove that you can get this thing to a higher level, at a highest level. That's what I'll miss, and getting the kids to, the Tom Landry saying, hey, great coaches or good coaches get players to do what they don't know how to do, or sometimes don't want to do, to get what they want to get. And I'll miss that, because I think you have a calling to get kids to play at a higher level, keep them excited, and sometimes, you know, I tell people, they say, "Well, you act like you're mad." I said, "Not mad. It's just a sense of urgency." And I think this too. Nowadays, everybody talks about you can't mistreat. Kids aren't soft. You know, if they're soft, it's because we let them be soft. I still think kids want to win. I think they want to get pushed, and I think they want to be driven. And now, I didn't say disrespected, and I don't want to. You want to be careful of crossing that line. But I enjoyed that, and I enjoyed seeing kids get better, and the camaraderie with the coaches. You know, I tell people this. I've had, if you look at my career, I've probably had a career probably as good as anybody. I mean, I've been so fortunate. I've never had a bad job. And we were talking. I played golf with R.C. Smoak a month ago. And we're talking. He said, "What would you bet?" I said, "I don't know. I couldn't say that all of them were good. Every place I've been, I couldn't sit there and say I didn't like it there. Never. Now, some jobs really felt very fortunate that the people that I've been around, I've really enjoyed them, and I thought that we were doing the right thing."
You were at Arizona State for a short time, but you were there. So you experienced Pac-12 football. Not that you didn't play against other Pac-12 schools. You guys crushed UCLA in the Holiday Bowl in San Diego one time. You just beat them up. But being a part of that conference, can you try to describe, it's not that football's not important, but is it different? Because you see this consternation about what may happen if they don't come up with a pretty good media deal with their television contract, and who might be interested in looking elsewhere, whether it's Colorado or Arizona. And you don't get that impression about Arizona State. What was that like?
Yeah, you know, when I was there, you know, of course, Washington was, I mean, they were dominant. They played in the college playoffs. You know, USC had Darnold. I mean, it was unique. But you also see some things, you know, it's a big conference. You know, you're a lot of different states. It's more states than you know, you're going to Oregon, you're going to Utah, you're going to Washington, California, Arizona, Colorado. And I think because of the graphical area that you lose a little bit. It was good football when I was there. Colorado was still okay. Mike McIntyre had kept it going. There was some great venues. Stanford was good. It was before they had dropped off a little bit. Utah was good. We were very fortunate going there and play. I played a couple of times. It's a great atmosphere. I just think, like everything else, I've kept up with that, Smoak, and it's so crucial. I think the league has been totally mismanaged. Having someone making decisions, the leadership of a conference is crucial. Just like the leadership you and I have talked of what you guys are doing at 365 now. I think the vision, the money they spent from, you know, I remember when I was there reading the story of and talking to some of those Pac-12 guys. You know, they built that, paying that rent that they were paying in San Francisco, and they moved in there. And I think there was a lot of confidence lost. And then I think that now you're looking around, they're saying, and USC saw it, and UCLA, and the unthinkable has happened. You know, their two LA teams are going to the Big Ten, which in our lifetime, who would have ever believed that? I mean, that would have been an April Fool's joke.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, things have changed dramatically. My last question, because you only experienced it, it's only been around for a couple of years, Phil. What is more or was more of a distraction, the transfer portal or NIL?
You know, it was a combination. The transfer portal, after my last year, my first year at North Texas, we lost two very good players, and they were definitely D1 players. They went to UCLA, really good players, good kids, and they did well out there. We lost a couple other kids, and then this year or last year before trade, we lost a couple of guys just on NIL stuff. So, what I don't like is there's not a common denominator. I read something recently about A&M and made a statement, said, the state of Texas allows us to do this, and the NCAA said they're going to have to abide by this. And basically, you've got a state law and you've got the NCAA. I don't know who do you respond to on that? How is that going to work when you're a member of the NCAA by agreeing to go by their rules, but yet on this one, because it benefits you, you're gonna go by state law. I mean, I don't know. You tell me. What are you hearing on that? How's that gonna happen? And then you go to Florida, they can't do that, and there becomes a distinct NIL advantage with your on-campus people being able to manage what you're doing, and you can't do it at Ole Miss. You can't do it at Mississippi State. How do they make that fair?
Yeah, Coach, it looks like A&M has kind of indicated that they're going to follow the state law, or that's where they're going, because I get a feeling that a lot of their big politically tied-in people help push for that. Same thing at Texas, as where schools like Baylor, we've had Mack Rhodes tell us they're going to follow the NCAA law. It doesn't benefit them to.
But do you think that's also the case, and you've mentioned this, Craig's mentioned this as well, because those two aren't worried about the NCAA, even though A&M's been hit before a handful of times. When you're a smaller school or a smaller fish, no matter how good you might be, you just don't want to mess with it?
Yeah, I think that very well could be the answer, but there has to be some guidelines, and I think every coach in America will say the same thing. It's got to be equal. I mean, when you're sitting in there, Baylor, A&M, they're 90 miles apart. I mean, they're going to compete. They're trying for the same thing: get to the playoff, win a national championship. You have to have something. It's got to be a fairness. Now, I understand this. There are the ones that, hey, some have more things than others. I mean, Lord knows, University of Texas, has always been able to outdo the people in the state of Texas. Now A&M has moved up, but I just don't know where the bottom line is going to be with it. Because everybody says, well, the NCAA is done. That's not true. I mean, at this point right now, the NCAA is still in charge of college football. And now, how much longer? I don't know. Is this going to be there? Is this going to be the end of it? That's the question. I don't know that. I mean, you look at what's happening in the playoffs when it goes to 12 teams. A lot of people talk about. A lot of people I know that are very well informed. They think that they're going to take over. There's going to be 68 teams, and it's going to be the bowl subdivision team, whatever it is, and there won't be an NCAA. I don't know if that's about. I don't know. Have you heard that?
Man, we've heard it all.
We've heard it all.
We really have. We've heard it all. We've heard it. Some are just going to send the middle finger and go ahead and see what you can do. And then there's some that are nervous about maybe they've already overstepped their boundaries and worried about taxes and what's the write-off or what can be done here. I know Del Conte sent out a letter saying, okay, hey, we need to kind of, this is what we need to look at. So even the big boys have to still wonder, okay, wait a minute, the NCAA feels like nobody cares about them because they have no power, and that's about the time they want to show their power.
Yeah, I've always wondered, though, Coach, why the NCAA just doesn't take the laws in Florida and Texas, take out a couple of little smaller things they don't like, and make that the rule. That way there's the rules. It's the same for everybody. Now you don't have to worry about anybody's state legislature patching it. Here's the rule. Here's what everybody's agreed to, and then we're going to move on. And based on your actual coffers is how you can work within these rules. Because otherwise the schools are going to, especially the states, are going to be one step ahead of them because there's always going to be, somebody like the guy in Miami who was getting looked at by the NCAA, and he just called up and told the couple politicians, like, hey, I would like this to go away. Can you please pass a law? And they said, absolutely. We'll thank you for a donation next time around. And that's how it changed.
When when A&M went into the SEC, I think it's 12 years ago, a very prominent coach who's a friend of mine made a statement. I said, A&M's good enough, Eagles still. And he was adamant. He said there'll never be a blue blood of the SEC. He said blue bloods are set. He said they'll be down there with South Carolina, Arkansas, Arkansas, and I'm thinking, what the hell you think you are? And I ran into him recently, and it's true. I mean, the SEC is a blue blood conference. If you're going to say, hey, we're not going to abide by what we think, I mean, you're sitting there and it's Alabama, it's Florida, it's Georgia, it's Auburn, it's Tennessee. Those guys are, and if I just don't know when you sit there and say, hey, we're going to do what we want to do, how much that will carry. And I do know this. I think that one of the great things about that conference is they've always had a commissioner that dealt with everybody, and it's sort of crazy, but it'll be interesting. And I don't blame A&M at all for trying to get ahead of the curve, but it's got to be good for everybody, I would think.
Hey, it's been a while. Can't wait to get locked in for the football season to hear your knowledge and insight from what happens the weekend before and just college football in general. Phil, we love you, man. Thanks for your time and glad to have you back on the show.
Hey, thank you, guys. Look forward to talking to you again. Bye-bye.
Phil Bennett, always a great segment, always just exactly how he feels, not this, well, wait a minute, I need to probably doesn't care. He's transparent and also very honest about how he feels. When we come back, John Machota, theathletic.com, and this is 365 Sports. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco with a lot of new specials that come out for the month of July, including what continues to be a fast-growing sport/hobby, pickleball. They have tennis open play every Monday at 7. Show up and play. But also, pickleball has exploded. When I was on the Stairmaster earlier today, watching the pickleball courts packed, and they have plenty of them. It's fun. They're having a great time. In fact, they're going to put together some sort of a travel package for the pickleball players so they can even get to know each other even better. There's a tennis academy, both youth and also adult tennis pros. If you want to exercise, whether it's weights, Cybex machines, Stairmaster, if you want to do cardio or try to increase your strength, just stay fit. It has what you need with new pieces of equipment arriving about once every 2 or 3 months. It is incredible. There's a new squat machine that is there, and I saw some trainers working on that and working with their clients on that earlier today. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
It's time for the 4th of July sales event at Allen Samuels in Waco. And just like the weather, the deals couldn't be hotter. Save big on Ram trucks. Now offering 10% off MSRP and a new 2023 Ram 1500 Lone Star Crew Cab. That's right. Or get 2.9% for 72 months. The choice is yours. Plus an extra $500 bonus cash to first responders. Allen Samuels in Waco is the place to shop Ram trucks. Visit today or browse online at allensamuelsdcj.com.
Come by. Let's be friends.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry, and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon-wrapped fillets to T-bone to bone-in ribeyes, cut specifically the way you want. They have Norwegian salmon fillets, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey and lunch meat, variety of cheese available, and several options of sausage links, fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, ground beef, marinated beef, and chicken fajitas, and always large briskets available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and family tradition of the Bauer family continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday. A full-service butcher shop and bakery available. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
When we moved to Texas, we were like fish out of water. We didn't know anyone in our neighborhood until our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent came to the house. She was so helpful and reassuring, a friendly face with that Texan hospitality I'd heard about. When we purchased a Texas Farm Bureau insurance policy, we knew we were making the right choice. We knew our family would be protected.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Ben Erlinson, who'll navigate you through today's financial climate. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now, here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
You know, there's some people that work, and then there are some people, John Machota, theathletic.com. We were told back days, years and years ago, that beat writers for the Cowboys could never take time off. And John informed me, Paul, that he's out next week.
Well, I mean, that he's got to take some time off before he goes to California to do his real work. So, in wonderful weather.
Where are you going, John? You're just going to go into emotional rehab to get ready for football season, or to get through what you've had to deal with, no matter who they are, the Cowboys?
It's funny. I'm going up to Michigan to hang out with family. That's where I'm from originally, outside of Detroit. And it's funny because my favorite thing about living in Texas is that I don't have to deal with snow anymore. But now I try, and this time of year, trying to get back up to Michigan, because for me, June, July, August, those are your best times to be in Michigan. So it works out pretty well. Going to go up there for probably about a week, and then the following week I'm going to go out to California a few days early, just to kind of hang out in Southern California, see some places and things like that. But yeah, just trying to lay low a little bit until everything gets going. Because once the season gets going, I mean, I know other writers that take some vacation time during the season. I don't ever like to do that. Maybe I'll take a day here or there or something, but I really like to be on call at any time, because you just never know what could happen. So this is my best opportunity to get some time off.
You've earned it. No, anyone who covers the Cowboys earned it. So do you play golf by chance?
I really don't, and I probably should, because that's a huge thing, like going up to Michigan this time of year. That's what everybody really does. But yeah, they got a lot of beautiful courses. But no, I don't. I've never even actually been to a golf course other than for work. I've been at a driving range, stuff like that, but I've never even golfed 18 in my life. I've never really had much interest in it.
Yeah, either you do or you don't, because Michigan, RJ Choppy, who I did a couple of months on the air with him back in 2010, I know he promotes that. I've heard him say that it's just at this time of the year is when you want to play golf in Michigan. They've got courses everywhere. That's why I brought that up. All right, Paul.
John, there's going to be a 10-episode Netflix series about Jerry and the Cowboys. These things are always good for people like us who cover the Cowboys. The Amazon show was really informative. What are you expecting this one to be more about?
I mean, from everything I've heard, it sounds like it's focusing more on when Jerry took over the organization and how they turned it around and won those three Super Bowls in the 90s, kind of in a way, a little bit off of kind of what ESPN did with The Last Dance with the Bulls of the 90s and Jordan. Of course, like Jordan is the figure everything's built around. Like you can't do that documentary and have it be great like it was without Michael Jordan. That's the key piece. And since then, you've had players come out and talk about how, well, there's too much Michael Jordan. And I would argue that there's not enough. But so obviously Jerry's on board with doing this. And so my biggest thing I'm wondering is how much does it touch on with, like, let's say the last 10 years, let's say the last 25 years of them not winning? How much does that touch on, or is it just all talking about what a great run they had in the 90s? I mean, while I think people will find that interesting, I think people will be quick to point out too, well, it's been over 25 years since they've gotten back. So I do expect a lot to be, or the majority of it to be, about the glory years, but I'm interested to see how much they touch on, Jerry, how much time, he's got left on this earth trying to win another Super Bowl, things like that.
Do you feel like, because of what you just said, that there's a sense of urgency like never before? Not that we know when Jerry's timeline is. He could go another 10 or 12 years. He kind of seems like he's in pretty good shape, but, Father Time wins. Is there a sense of urgency even more so than before because of that, or has it always been pretty much the same?
No, I mean, I would say there's more now, and that's a big factor in it. I would say that would take up a huge chunk of the pie chart if we were breaking it up. But then the other thing is, too, is that, the Cowboys really believe that, they have a lot of the key pieces in place to get it done. And then, like we've talked about before, how wide open this NFC is. And so because so many pieces are in place, because of how everything's there for the taking, if you can get hot at the right time, you have your franchise quarterback, you have arguably the best defensive player in the league, and you have the best defense that you've had in over a decade. You have a defensive coordinator that is one of the best, if not the best, defensive coordinators in the game, and you have this veteran head coach who's won a Super Bowl. So because of all of that, I certainly feel that the expectations and the driving force to win now is greater than it was, let's say, during those first 3-4 years Jason Garrett was head coach. I mean, that's why Jerry hired Mike McCarthy. So no, there's definitely a huge sense of urgency, and that's also why I say, like, some of these positions, like, number 2 running back or that left guard spot, or if they need another wide receiver, it would not surprise me at all if they don't go out and, like they did last year, went and got Anthony Barr, went and got T.Y. Hilton. Like, I don't look at this roster right now like, well, they're going to trim it down to 53 and that's going to be how it is. No, if they need to, fill in a spot here or there, I expect them to do that because of the opportunity they have in front of them.
Do you expect this to be a year where, if they have momentum, that they might do something in mid-season before the trade deadline?
The only reason why I would say that they would is, let's say, they're playing really well and things are, let's say they're on pace to, again, win 12, let's say 13 games, and they look like, hey, it's going to be them and maybe Philly or the Niners like it does right now. I could see that if they were lacking somewhere. Let's say they had an injury during the season and there's somebody that's kind of doing okay filling in, but they feel like, hey, if we get this piece, we can put over the top. Maybe it's a receiver, maybe it is another running back to help out with Tony Pollard or something like that. But I lean more towards on the offense of them trying to make a splash there if they need to. On defense, as long as they stay relatively healthy, there's really not many areas they need to. Maybe linebacker. Outside of that, they're pretty deep at safety. Now, if you're getting Gilmore, corner looks pretty good. The defensive line has a lot of depth to it, young and seasoned vets. So if there was going to be any type of a splash move, it would have to be, I would think, at wide receiver. And you know what? You can even throw in tight end. And if some of these young tight ends don't step up the way that they're expecting them to, maybe that's what they do. Maybe they make a move for a veteran tight end, which is a move that probably wouldn't cost you a ton.
John, of what Dan Quinn has brought to the table, which is obviously a difference maker on the defensive side of the ball for the last couple of years, what position has he had the largest or the best or most impact on?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's tough for me to say anything but safety. And the only reason why I say that is because it's so glaring how different the safety position is now compared to where it was 2-3 years ago, with the talent that they have, with how their safeties are being utilized. They have a legit 3 or 4 starting safeties, and there were years not that long ago where they barely had one really good starting safety, if that. And so that position, how multiple they've done on that back end. I mean, heck, Jaron Kearse has been outstanding, and he didn't have a huge role in any of his previous stops, and now he's getting the best role of his career and what he's doing and what Dan Quinn's asked of him. And, you know, a lot of people will point to the defensive line too, because obviously this whole thing doesn't reach the level it is right now on their defense without Micah Parsons. But if I had to just point to one position group, it has to be safety. It's so much more improved than what it was 3-4 years ago.
If only he'd have Jeff Heath.
You know, but it's funny you say that, because that was kind of the thing. It was like, you know, when I think of like those, you know, 14, 16, they had those really good offenses, they had those really good teams. They were teams that could have went deeper in the playoffs than they did. But then you look at safety and defensive tackle will always be the two spots that I look at. I'm just like, I get it that you were trying to get by with, like Nick Hayden and some of these guys, Antoine Woods, Jeff Heath, and those guys are fine and they're good players in their own right. But it was just like they didn't go after like the bigger name guy. Whereas right now, you know, they've gone and used a first round pick on Mozzie Smith. You know, they've gone out and signed, you know, Malik Hooker and made a little bit more emphasis on those positions, where I just felt like at that time they were kind of like, well, these are positions we just don't have a higher value on, so we're just not going to spend significantly there. And obviously you can go back to Tristan Hill over Juan Thornhill and all that stuff. So, yeah, it's just interesting how they put so much more of an emphasis on it, because let's be honest, the people that are in the front office making the calls and getting these players, it's Steven, it's Jerry, it's Will McClay, it's a lot of the same guys that were there then.
All right, last thing, you know, the Joey Chestnut won again the hot dog eating contest, which if you watch the way they stick that in water to make it easier to eat a hot dog, it can maybe ruin your day. I know it ruins the competitor's day. If you had to consume something reasonable, like it wouldn't be a turkey, but if you had to consume food that came in small portions, chicken wings, pieces of pizza, hot dogs, what it might be, what would you, somebody here earlier mentioned Chick-fil-A nuggets. What would it be that you would want to try to consume as much as you can in a certain amount of time?
It would have to be pizza. I mean, that's not great to eat in large because of just how it's going to sit on your stomach. You'd like to have something that's a little bit lighter than that, but I just love pizza. But I mean, with any of that stuff, it just is amazing how, like, you really have to be like almost like have this athlete mindset of there's just no way that after that fifth or sixth hot dog that those are still tasting good to him. And I don't think after you're, you know, after you've downed a large pizza, they'd be tasting good to you. If I had to eat anything though, outside of that stuff, it would be, like goldfish, like the cracker goldfish snack. Oh, yeah. I don't think I would ever get sick of those. Like I don't, doesn't matter how many of those I eat, I can eat more and more of those. That would be my go-to. But if it was a main like food item, it would have to be pizza. There's nothing I like more than pizza. Yeah,
I can see that. It's amazing what he does and somehow still lives. Thank you, John. Have a great vacation. We'll talk to you at the mid to late part of July. Thank you, John Machota, theathletic.com. Craig, if you had to, was it Levi or was it Graham that brought up the Chick-fil-A nuggets? Because those are really, really good. And
I was the one that brought those up.
You brought it up. Would it be if you had to eat a bunch of one thing at one time over, let's say, 10 minutes?
Well, yeah, I'm the one that brought it up.
Okay. Garrett, what would yours be?
Oh, I'd probably go wings. I could tear up some wings.
Okay, now they would have to be drumettes, right? Drumettes, or because if you don't want the big,
I can get in them. It don't matter.
But if you're trying to win something, the flappers are going to slow you down.
Yeah, the flappers. True. But if they're separated, you have the flappers and then you have the drumette. Yeah. I think you can go through those pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I brought up nuggets from Chick-fil-A, because that was what I thought I could probably do outside of that, and I don't think I'd want to mess with the wings and bones and all of that. But I could see where that would be great for other people. But that was just the first thought I had was those Chick-fil-A nuggets.
And Chick-fil-A nuggets, damn good. I mean, they taste really good.
I don't know what it was for. Somebody asked me to bring a Chick-fil-A nugget tray to like a potluck one time. And I got like the
potluck.
Yeah, they wanted like, hey, I said, what do you want me to bring? It was one of those things that I kind of got invited to it late. Amanda and I got invited to it later. Like, hey, come on by since you guys are in town. I said, well, what do we want to bring? And they said, why don't you bring like a Chick-fil-A nugget tray? Everybody's kind of bringing stuff like that. I said, okay. So I went and got one. And to watch people, because you go to the restaurant, you can order 8 or 12 of them, right? Mm-hmm. But then to watch people like go buy this nugget tray and then like almost take their full arm and like sweep them onto the plate, because you think like, oh, well, there's no rules on me now.
Yep.
Chick-fil-A can't slow me down. I'm just going to scarf them. I would do shrimp. I think I could throw down some shrimp.
I would think my stomach, I love shrimp. I had shrimp, in fact, Saturday night, kind of my own little shrimp boil in the oven. with new potatoes and whatever else, sausage, I would absolutely, my stomach would explode after about 25 pieces of shrimp. And I can eat shrimp with anything.
Have you ever gone to a restaurant and ordered shrimp and they're like, there's comes with 6 and you're like, these better be pretty big?
No, they have to be big butterfly type. Right?
I'd have to do fried shrimp if we're doing that. And I know that'd fill me up faster, but I don't think I could do, like, I love shrimp, but I don't think I could do just regular shrimp over and over and over. It's like to the point of having like 80 of them. I think I would just, I would not feel great after a while. And maybe not with fried shrimp either, but at least it tastes a little better to me at least.
Alan Tran, a 72-ounce steak. No, we're talking about consuming a lot of something.
That's a lot of
over
something.
10, but God, I guess a 72-ounce steak in 10 minutes.
Or cut up pieces of steak.
What's that big Texan challenge that they have
in West Texas?
Amarillo.
Amarillo.
Or whatever.
I think they even have one near Oxnard somewhere.
But it's like a 72-ounce steak and a baked potato and a little salad and a roll.
Yeah, so that would work. Yeah, I mean, to your point, that would be a good one.
Dundee's mini pancakes. Elias Gray, chicken tamales with salsa verde.
I can see you crushing a bunch of tamales, for sure.
Chick-fil-A nuggets many times.
Pancakes, I feel like would you get filled up on those pretty quickly.
Because
it's kind of like Olive Garden offers like never-ending pasta, but they know that pasta is going to fill you up pretty quick. Like, so people will make a dent, but you're not going to be there all night eating pasta. You physically couldn't do that. So it's kind of a smart marketing deal there. But yeah, that would work.
Chicken enchiladas, Popeye shrimp, tamales, tacos at Jack in the Box. That's only after you've been to the sports bar or a club, and you're probably maybe had a couple
only
of
after
doobies.
1 a.m.
Yeah. In the back of a van with the Doobie Brothers.
Yeah. Ear.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you to. We didn't get to read all of them, but we appreciate the responses. Paul Catalina's top 5 is next.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive in North 19th Street, a hidden gem. It is the summertime. And look, if you were at a barbecue yesterday and you did not have a good selection of craft beer, well, you probably didn't go to Riverbend Liquor and Wine. Well, now, there's going to be barbecues for the rest of summer, maybe not for 4th of July, but it's still summertime, and you want great craft beer, well, that's where they have it. The best variety of craft beer in Waco, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street. They're always turning the roster. They've got some great stuff in there right now, so go in and check it out, the craft beers at Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, behind the bank.
The future's bright. The time is now.
College is what you make it. It's a late-night pizza run and all-nighters coding a new project. It's having big dreams and making them a reality. It's a professor who knows your name and your story. It's preparation for your future, your calling, your life. And at Baylor, it's even more. Baylor, where lights shine bright.
Joined by Samantha Duvall, TexasBeefHouse.com, Director of Marketing. 4th of July, it's coming up. We've been through Father's Day, Memorial Day before that, and now you have 4th of July. What are a couple of specials, or maybe when people call, they could focus on the 4th of July weekend?
So we just got a new shipment of inventory in, so we are stocked back up on our brisket. We're stocked back up on our ribeyes. Of course, we've got hamburger patties, jalapeno and cheese patties. Those are one of our biggest sellers. Also put together what we call the grilling package, and it's a package that gives you sirloin, filet, hamburger package, regular patties, jalapeno and cheese patties, New York strip, and some of our Wagyu garlic links. They're fully cooked. You just throw them on the grill or put them in the oven.
Where is the best beef in Texas? Your house. When you order from Texas Beef House, unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu from our pasture to your plate. TexasBeefHouse.com.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit Marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Did you know that 1 out of every 4 men have symptomatic low levels of testosterone and don't even know it? And if you think you're too young to worry about it, guess again. Low T levels can make you feel tired and grumpy, raise your cholesterol, and cause weight gain. Petty Clinic Low T can set up same-day blood screening and results. So if you're tired of being tired, call or go online at pettycliniclowt.com. It's a private clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Affordable, only $165 a month, including lab work, office consultation, testosterone injections, and follow-up visits, compared to $300 or more a month in Dallas or Austin, and you don't have to drive 90 miles one way or the other and fight the traffic. Petty Clinic Low T has board-certified physician consultations and will provide the best form of brand-strength testosterone. Contact Petty Clinic Low T for increased energy, improvement in sexual desire and performance, mood, concentration, even a decrease in body and belly fat. Just off Highway 84 and Old Hewitt Drive in Woodway, pettycliniclowt.com.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Top 5 surprises from the Big 12 preseason team. I don't know how much these are really surprises. They were just surprised. This is my first. I did the top 5 literally right after I read it the first time. So I've had a little more time to think about it. So I might have changed my mind since then, but this is what I wanted to do today. So we're doing it. Number 5, no TCU players on offense. They have the kicker and 3 players on defense. But, I mean, granted, they had a ton of turnover, but it was kind of surprising to me that not an offensive lineman, nothing. Even with the transfers coming in, like if you're going to have a guy, you know, from the other, that comes from the other conference.
From Alabama,
like you have a BYU player on defense. That to me is kind of like having a transfer as well. But yeah, none of those people wound up on the preseason team.
I mean, okay, their whole O-line's gone, basically.
Yeah.
Those guys got drafted. Their top skill guys in every form and fashion are gone, except for like Jared Wiley.
Yeah.
You know, so both their top 2 running backs, most
Quentin
of their receivers,
Johnson,
first-round draft picks.
Darius Davis.
Their quarterback,
he's gone
Darius
too.
Davis is gone. Like, who is there? And, you know, you're going to give me JoJo Earl over who in the Big 12? Who we putting him over? And based on what? The fact that he came from Alabama? Like, I mean, it's surprising to see because they're so you know, they were such an explosive team last year. They're led by an offensive guy. They made the big change at OC with Kendall Briles coming in to replace Garrett Riley, who's now off to, you know, doing bigger and better things as well. But yeah, there's just not a guy that I think's cut out for it when you compare it to who everybody else has. Because you can make a case for why JoJo Earl by the end of the year will be all Big 12, but I don't think he's done anything to put him over Xavier Worthy or, you know, people like that right now. So.
Yep.
Yeah. Number 4, Trayshawn Ward is Newcomer of the Year. I know him well. I just surprised me that he was the guy that they picked over some of the guys coming into other teams in the league. But it is, and the reason I do think it was an excellent selection is not because, you know, I'm a fanboy for him. It is because he is the kind of running style he is and the offense is going to. is a perfect fit. It's a really good fit for his style of play and his style of player. So, yeah, it should have been a no-brainer, but I was really surprised to see it because I kind of felt that, because I would ask people about Trayshawn Ward, and they'd kind of always bring, well, yeah, Gibbons is there too, though. Well, yeah, but this guy really is going to fit what they do and was electric in big-time games a season ago. So, yeah, I just think it is really a perfect fit for a guy who, wasn't going to get as much playing time in Tallahassee anymore. And I'm super happy that he's found what I think is a perfect fit for him in Manhattan.
Yeah, I mean, he could have gone JoJo Earl here, I mean, he would have fit the bill.
Yeah,
I think
that's what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, Toussaint McCullough at Oklahoma could have been one. I think A.D. Mitchell at Texas could have been one. I mean, there was over 100 guys that are new through the transfer portal to the league this year, so a lot to sort through. Only a select few, obviously, that are in this top tier that would get nomination for this. But, yeah, I mean, given what K-State does, given that they're loaded everywhere else on offense, or at least they return basically everybody on offense, basically, you're running behind an O-line that doesn't change at all from last year, really at all. You've got the same quarterback. Now, I know it's new for Trayshawn Ward, and it's new from them from that standpoint, but I think it's just a belief in Chris Kleiman and what they're doing that he's going to have a monster year just because of what's around him.
Yeah.
And his own talents, don't get me wrong, right? But I think the combination is why, he's going to have a huge year.
Yeah. Number 3, no Baylor players on defense. I'm not surprised about that from a, who's it going to be, but this is a team and a coach that's built his reputation on defense. And not a one on the defense this year, which, the only one I would have think could have made it would have been maybe TJ Franklin, I guess. But as far as Baylor building a team, their attitude, especially in 2021, was so built on their toughness on defense.
19 and 21.
Yeah.
Even though Aranda wasn't at 19.
Yeah. But not having a guy on the defense was a little bit surprising to me. I mean, or that it's surprising that they're at this point.
There's not one person that I think should have been on the preseason. Now, can they prove me that wrong? Not me, but that wrong? Sure. Maybe 3 or 4 will. Maybe that will be part of their edge. I don't know. It shouldn't take a preseason team, though.
I think it's concerning if you're a team that barely makes a bowl game again this year. And if that reason why, or part of the reason why, is that your defense can't stop anybody or can't, cover the pass game with any, normal effectiveness, it's a weird spot to be in when you have Dave Aranda as your head coach and not a single guy who's getting any kind of love. I don't know what the votes tallied out to. I'm not sure if TJ Franklin, for example, did get some votes, but it's understandable why he wasn't put on there above, some of those other guys. But yeah, it's a weird deal, and I know Mike Smith's getting a lot of love, the newcomer, but he wasn't going to crack through that linebacker list on that all Big 12 team, and I'm pretty sure that most guys covering the Big 12 still don't know who Mike Smith is. So yeah, it's a weird deal that they don't have anybody that jumps out to you off that side of the ball.
Yep. Number 2. Only one Oklahoma player, and that guy's on defense.
Is it Stutzman?
No.
Yeah. Oh, it was a defensive lineman, wasn't it?
Yeah. So that kind of shows you how rough last year was for Oklahoma. And, we'll get into quarterback in just one second. But I was surprised that there was not, you mentioned Toussaint McCullough, newcomer of the year. I would have kind of put him in maybe that as well, just because I think the kind of player he is. But not to have anybody.
He's leaving, right? Isn't he the one that's transferring?
He's from Indiana.
Yeah,
coming from Indiana. Yeah. So he would have been a great newcomer of the year candidate as well. But yeah, this to me was really, really kind of bizarre to look down and only see one Oklahoma player on the all preseason Big 12 team.
I mean, I don't know for sure, but I don't think there were too many defensive players usually on there, or maybe that started to weed out towards the end of Lincoln Riley. So, based on what we saw last year, I don't blame anybody for not giving them the benefit of the doubt on defense as to having guys on there. Although, McCullough could be a guy potentially, and I'm sure there's some others that deserve some consideration, but I don't blame voters for not going they definitely belong over this guy. Given that, there's also 4 new schools that are plugging guys in as well. And I know they didn't get a ton of representation, but they did take up some spots ultimately. I think that, the thing is nobody on offense.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the weird part.
Yeah.
I mean, defense is I mean, that's again, I don't know what their numbers were. Like maybe with Lincoln Riley, they had like 3 defenders on there a year. I don't remember, but I think the offensive part of it is jarring because that has been your bread and butter, and that's more of a question mark than it has been in a really long time. So there's a lot of people that expect them to win like 10 games. I know their over-unders like 9.5. I know some of that's just the name, but also their easy schedule, the fact that you think they're going to bounce back, that they retooled this offseason, but yeah, there's not a lot of just names that jump out at you right now off that roster.
It's unheard of, considering that really since they won the national title in 2000, they had one year where it didn't end well. I think they ended up like 8-5 or whatever. It might have even been the year that Bradford got hurt. Perhaps not. Or when Stoops was embarrassed by Baylor at home that year, and then last year. It's unheard of that would be just one name on both the offense and defense combined.
It would be like not having a Kansas player on the first or second team in basketball.
And by the way, somebody, Allen, and I hope it's Allen or Elaine, Oklahoma has to earn it. You're right. Don't give it to them just because of the last 20 years. Yeah,
it's just a surprise that you're at a point where – you can't – and look, I was trying to go through, and outside of maybe Dylan Gabriel making it as the quarterback, and he wouldn't have over a couple guys, but that was the argument on offense because they've got to fill in, some people.
Take Jalen Daniels and put him on any other team in the Big 12, and how many of those 13 other teams, if he was their quarterback, would they be favored to win the conference?
Oh, I think there's only like 2 schools that could definitively say, like, no, we don't need him.
Yeah, and I don't know. I know what you're saying, but I could put him on Baylor, and Baylor would be better. But would I consider them to win the conference?
No.
I'd still go like, no, probably
not.
not. Yeah, but I get what you mean by that. But yeah, Oklahoma, ridiculous run they've been on. That just kind of goes to show you they're in a little bit of a no man's land that they haven't really been in all that often. The last time they didn't win 8 or more games other than last year was the very first year of Bob Stoops.
They went
7-5.
7-5.
They won 8 games or more every single year since 2000 until last year. And that was with just 1, 2, 3, 4 of those seasons since 2000 were less than double-digit wins. Yeah. Not counting last year. Before the Venables regime.
No,
that's how remarkably consistent they've been.
They were incredible for the most part for 20 years. And the standard, what I saw when I saw the team released is how absolutely even this conference is, because there was no team with like 8 guys.
No, Texas had 5, Kansas had 4.
Yep.
Those were the,
Oklahoma State 3.
Kansas State had 3. Yeah.
Yeah, it was very much, very, very even among all the schools.
Yeah. And number 1. Jalen Daniels at QB, because I thought for sure this was going to be Quinn Ewers. I thought for sure. I think Jalen Daniels is very deserving. We talked about it at the top of the show. Very deserving of this honor. And it's not a knock to me on Quinn Ewers. I think it's just a credit to Jalen Daniels and how different he makes a team that was pretty moribund before he rolled into there. So, yeah, I think that
if it wouldn't have been him, you think it would have been Ewers, or would have been because
Will Howard?
Will Howard. Yeah. Well, look, to me, I think you've got 4 guys you can maybe make the case for, depending on what else is around them. And I think in this order, in no particular order, but, Jalen Daniels is 1, Will Howard is 2, Quinn Ewers 3, and maybe Dylan Gabriel. I really do. I like Dylan Gabriel. I think he showed how good he was when he was healthy last year and how different the offense was at Oklahoma when he wasn't playing. So, yeah, Dylan Gabriel's a guy you could put on a team, but
I'm going to throw out a surprise only based on a small portion of what we saw, not nearly a large enough sample size, but the way everything finished with Tyler Shuck at Texas Tech as someone who might, if he can stay healthy, be pretty good by the time we look at the end of the year.
I think he and Dylan Gabriel have the same problem when it comes to it, which is sample size.
Yep.
Plumlee too. I don't know you put him right up there with those guys, but I think people need to see him first. But yeah, I was slightly surprised by this. I kind of came around to this idea a lot more last week, and I don't remember why. Maybe somebody had put out their poll, and I was like, yeah, that's definitely, that should be his spot. But if you want to make a case for Ewers or for Howard, I have no problem with that. It's a preseason poll, but I think it's great that Daniels is getting that type of love, and it's going to be up to Kansas now to take hold of that momentum and actually do something with it, which is, going to be a lofty test because they haven't really been here all that often in many, many years. So they have expectations, and playing with those is a lot different than playing when everybody, expects you to get blown out by 14 every week.
Leipold has done an incredible job, as Kleiman has done at Kansas State, and also winning the title. By the way, 365 Sports tonight, 10:30, every weeknight at 10:30, thanks to Emery Winter with what he does. And we'll feature Phil Bennett, also feature Ivan Maisel, who is fantastic, and John Machota. For Graham Bronstein, Levi Caraway, Emery on remote, and this guy named Garrett Ross is running the mothership today. Thank you very much. Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina, back again tomorrow. I'm David Smoak. Thank you to our sponsors. Thank you to you, the audience. This is 365 Sports, and good night.